certainly like, and welcome to tonight's meeting. Thank you and welcome to our community members who are joining us online on tonight's live stream for the Ordinary Council meeting of 18th of March 2025. Thank you for joining us today, and to councillors as well, and ELT, welcome. A reminder for those who are joining us via the live stream and who have submitted public questions that following advice from Security and Victoria Police, the decision was made to move the council meeting online, and this was in the interest of public safety. I'd just like to note on behalf of the councillor group that this was not a decision taken lightly, and we as councillors have to make important community decisions while also prioritising safety. So I speak on behalf of the councillor group when I say that a lot of thought and planning has gone into ensuring that we can hold this meeting tonight and bring forward important council business for decisions. As your new councillors, we want to host our council meetings in person. We've stated this a number of times over recent weeks, and we look forward to returning back to our normal in-person format as soon as possible. Just another note that we have reordered the agenda for tonight's meeting slightly to ensure that officers' reports are heard and discussed and decisions made due to the meeting taking place online. So all public questions that were received and deemed valid, they will be answered, but that will occur after officers' reports towards the end of the meeting. Tonight, I'm personally accompanied this evening by our CEO, Glenn Patterson, and also Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Jen Bednar, who will be providing support throughout the meeting to me here for the meeting. So you may see me looking either side throughout the meeting, and that's the reason for that. I'll just move on now just to acknowledge my fellow councillors again. Thank you for joining us online tonight, and to the members of our executive team, CEO Glenn Patterson, James Collins, Director of City Planning and Infrastructure, as well as Jen Bednar, Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Steve Coldham, Director of Community Life, and we're also supported in locations by our Office of Council and our audiovisual team, and we have a number of senior council staff here for reports. So we welcome you all to tonight's meeting. I'll now move on to our statement of acknowledgement. So item 1.1, the City of Casey proudly acknowledges the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities and their rich culture, and pays respect to their elders past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's first peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we work and live. I'll now move to 1.2, which is the reading of Casey's diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to remarkable diversity with many cultures, languages, faiths and communities of worship, ages, LGBTQI+ identities and landscapes, together forming our rich and dynamic community story. From our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave in between, the City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthy, rewarding and happy lives. We recognise this diversity as our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. I'll now move to item 2, which is the Declaration of Interests. I have considered my obligations under Section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020 and do not have a conflict of interest relevant to the agenda papers. Can I now ask, do any council officers online this evening have a conflict of interest regarding reports presented this evening? Just checking the screen here, no hands have been raised, so I'll take that as no conflicts to declare. I'll now ask my fellow councillors, do any of the councillors have any conflicts of interest in the agenda that they wish to declare? I see no show of hands, so I'll take that as no conflicts to declare. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. I'll now move on to item 3, which is the confirmation of previous meeting minutes. So we've got 2 sets of previous meeting minutes to be confirmed this evening. The first is for the council meeting held on 18th of February 2025. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of this meeting. Councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Ross, thank you. Noted you as moving. Councillors, do I have a seconder for those minutes for the 18th meeting? Councillor Rowe, thank you very much. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Can I ask for a vote? All those in favour for the minutes to be passed, raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. Sorry, just checking the screen here as we're online. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. I'll now move on to the next set of minutes because we have had two meetings previous, and the council meeting held on 11th of March 2025. That was last week. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of this meeting? Councillors, do I have a mover? I'll take Councillor Taylor there as the mover. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And councillors, do I have a seconder? Councillor Walter, thank you. Saw your hand raised first. So on that, I'll now ask for a vote on these minutes. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And we have 12 hands. Thank you, councillors. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll now move on to item 4, which is officers' reports. So there are 5 officer reports that we have this evening in open council. And the first item is item 4.1. The report relates to Casey Community Local Law 2023, which councillors have requested be brought to this meeting. We've got Officer Mr. Callum Paddy, Manager of Connected Communities, to speak to this report. Mr. Paddy, are you available to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. The Casey Community Law 2023 was developed and endorsed in December 2023 with a focus on community safety and to safeguard public assets and enhance neighbourhood amenity. Councils utilise local laws to respond to local issues and community needs and typically support, but are not limited to, the protection of local amenity, as well as regulating activities on council land and roads. Throughout 2023, the Local Law 2023 underwent consultation to consider how it could best support the community with matters such as animal management, unsightly and vacant land, waste management, reserves, footpath trading and building site regulations. Recent community feedback has raised significant concerns relating to the land and neighbourhood amenity clauses, private land use and the application of permits. Council may look to consider options to provide clarity on the intent and implementation of the Local Law 2023 as outlined in the report, and changes to the Local Law 2023 would need to be made in accordance with requirements specified under the Local Government Act 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paddy. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Paddy? Noting no questions, I note that the recommendation from the officer's report is that the report be noted. Councillors, would anyone like to move a motion for that recommendation? Thank you, councillors. So no motion has been put for the recommendation. Do we have any councillors who wish to put forward an alternate motion? Councillor Ambrose. I'll just check it. So that alternate motion should hopefully come up on the screen shortly, which Councillor Ambrose has prepared. Councillor Ambrose, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I do. I would like to raise an alternative motion that the City of Casey Council resolves to undertake a comprehensive review of the Casey Community Local Law 2023, where we suspend fees for the local law private land use application and the permits during the course of the review during being undertaken. Further to the above, Council requests a detailed report from the Council officers for the April 2025 Council meeting that includes a detailed timetable to undertake the review that ensures all members of the community have had the opportunity to express their views, and these are considered as part of the comprehensive consultation process. A scope of the review incorporating all relevant matters to be considered, including the appropriateness and scope of the local law, private land use permit fees and charges, benchmarking the comparison with other local laws, including fees and charges, legal parameters council is required to follow, guidelines and protocols for the application and enforcement of the local laws, and balancing property owners' use and enjoyment for their land while protecting community amenity and safety.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ambrose, and for talking through your alternate motion. Councillors, do I have a seconder for this motion put forward by Councillor Ambrose? Councillor Taylor, I noted your hand up first. Thank you for that. So with a mover and a seconder, I will now ask Councillor Ambrose, would you like to speak to the motion itself? Noting you've read the motion out, but would you like to speak further to it?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. So I just would like to say thank you to Councillor Shane for seconding my motion. Today marks a significant step forward that brings us together as a community where us councillors, particularly myself, have been working with our community and listening to the concerns that have been raised by our residents. And I hope that this will shape the future of our city. The motion is a result of conversations amongst councillors and council officers regarding the issues that have been raised about the Casey Community Local Law 2023. And as a new council, we're all coming into terms with our responsibilities and how to represent and respond to the issues facing our city. It is clear that some people have real concerns about this local law and how they believe it is being applied. Councillors became aware at the February council meeting the depth of those concerns, and also many conversations with community members at various points of time. Given the depth of the feeling and display that and the need to have a responsible and respectful debate, council decided to make this matter a priority at tonight's meeting. And we want to ensure that our residents are confident and that their concerns have been raised and properly considered and examined. I also would like to just thank my fellow councillors for being true local representatives and taking the time to speak to residents with all matters that have come in front of us. And I just would like to thank Michael Law Award residents for coming to me. I've heard your concerns and I thank you for taking the time to express them to me. So this moment for me is a moment so we can move forward as a community, and I thank everyone who has contributed to this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ambrose. Councillor Taylor, as seconder of this motion, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm in support of this alternate motion regarding our Casey Community Local Law, particularly how it's applied to private property. This comes from concerns brought to me directly in my own ward and the greater Casey community. And I think it's a responsibility to them to take them seriously and respond thoughtfully. We all know our local laws were in place with good intentions to keep Casey safe, tidy and well maintained. That's a goal that I'm sure we can all get behind. But I've heard from some residents who have expressed concern with the level of enforcement, especially on private property. And that's not the kind of council I want. It risks eroding trust and causing unnecessary angst in our community. So I see this motion as a chance to take a step back, take a careful look and make sure we're getting it right. What's being proposed here is pretty clear. Let's review the local law, bring in independent legal advice, and make sure that we're getting proper consultation with the community. So I feel that the community needs to have their voice heard in this whole consultation process. Their voice needs to shape the law and not just our voices. I'd like to address an important aspect of this motion, the suspension of the application and the permit fees for the private land use permit during the review period. This temporary measure shows good faith to our residents and demonstrates that we're serious and we're listening to our community during the review process. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the alternate motion proposed? No speakers in opposition. Well, in that case, would anyone else like to speak on the motion that's been put forth and seconded? Councillor Ross.
Hello, thank you. I'd like to note that the intention behind the local laws is not in dispute, and what will be important as an outcome of the review will be to ensure the laws are written and communicated in a way that is easy for all residents to understand. So this includes the use of appropriate explanatory notes and also that it's very clearly communicated on the council website. Aside from the communication, I encourage all residents to be involved in the process. You asked for it. As fellow residents, we hear you, we support you, but it's up to you now to be involved and to help own this. So when we go through the process of the review, that everyone can be satisfied they've had the opportunity to contribute, so we can all carry forward the intention behind the local laws, which is about making our community, a place that we're proud to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I did note, Councillor Crowther, you had raised your hand just after Councillor Roth. Did you want to speak next?
Yes, through you, Mayor, I would like to speak to the alternate motion. I thank the officers for preparing this report and Councillor Melinda Ambrose for presenting the alternate motion. I thank also my residents from Crabberg Gardens Ward, particularly from the rural and semi-rural areas, who gave feedback pretty quickly on this issue, particularly about the recreational vehicles and mechanical repairs and also the unregistered vehicles. Obviously, one unregistered vehicle in the front of a yard in Clyde North has a bigger impact than maybe 5 unregistered cars in a 10-acre property in Devon Meadows. So we need to get this local law reviewed and really focusing on the impact on the amenity rather than just numbers. So I hope that we can achieve this with this review. To all of the people that have been asking for the laws to be quashed, well, that's really not an option, and that's not what we're seeking to do. My inbox is filled with residents complaining about neighbours and the impact on their neighbourhood, and we do need a mechanism to help keep our neighbourhood amenity at its best. So quashing is not the goal of this review, but review, and as Councillor Ross just said, clear explanations of the law is what we do need. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crowther. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Eves and then Councillor Dizon. Councillor, yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry. I welcome a review of these local laws. The laws have a bit of a mishmash.
Councillor Eves, we've just got, I think, an audio issue there. I might move to Councillor Dizon to speak, and then if you want to, in the interim, get your audio looked at, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Councillor Dizon, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor, I'd like to begin by noting that the Casey Community Local Law of 2023 definitely has good intentions, and these laws play a vital role in addressing nuisance and maintaining our quality of life. However, like my fellow councillors who have just spoken, after listening to many residents, I acknowledge concerns raised about certain aspects of these laws. Many in our community, myself included, feel that some provisions may be too restrictive or heavy-handed, and that is why I support this motion, which would include a comprehensive review of our local laws and community consultation, as well as a comparative analysis of similar laws in other Victorian councils to ensure a fair and balanced approach. our goal, in my view, should be to have local laws that are fair and reflective of our community's needs. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dizon. Councillor Eves, do you want to have another go?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you.
I welcome a full review of the City of Casey's local laws. The laws have become a bit of a mishmash and their communication is confusing for many residents. Currently, we have local laws which include use of private land, permits, which basically formalise a permission given by neighbours to be excluded from the enforcement. And as of 2017, we now enforce the EPA residential pollution laws, which include loud noise, runoffs, smokes, odorous smells, rubbish, and vermin, to name a few. It is worth noting that Council does not proactively enforce any local laws or EPA residential regulation breaches. We only act on neighbours' complaints about antisocial behaviour, and often they are complaining about EPA breaches. It'll be good to combine most of the laws and simplify them for residents. So it's time for a full review. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eves. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to the motion? I'll just double check I'm on two screens. I'll just see if there's anyone with a hand raised elsewhere. I don't see any other hands raised, so I'll take the opportunity before we move to a vote, maybe just to wrap up and provide some of my thoughts in relation to this motion. I'd like to thank Councillor Ambrose and the other councillors who've contributed to this process to put together what I think is an excellent motion. I think it's thorough and I'm thoroughly supportive of it. I think we do need to undertake a comprehensive review of the Casey Community Local Law 2023. I think I'd just reflect as Mayor maybe on the broader context and the challenges we've faced as a group coming into a newly elected council. We've taken the opportunity and the time to listen to residents since this was first raised with us at the start of this year. And I think for context, for residents, it's important to note that decisions like this are quite significant to undertake a formal and a comprehensive full review. Those decisions can only be made in an official public council meeting. It's not something that the mayor or councillors can decide on the fly or of their own accord. So I think my role as mayor, I've really been trying to stress the importance of good governance, given what's occurred at Casey Council over the 5 years prior to the prior to that, and a lot of the challenges that we're all aware of. So I'd like to thank the councillors for their commitment to that good governance and the way we've gone about this. I think this is a show of how this new council wants to go about doing its business, and I'm very proud of that. So thank you to everyone. I think the importance around this is listening to community, and part of this, for me, this review is about, and the key part of it is about consultation and ensuring that residents have their voices heard through the right forum, and that will be outlined, we would expect, in April 2025 meeting to show the way about how this detailed report will outline the review itself, assuming this is passed. I think for me, some of the real key elements that need to be reviewed, particularly around the fees, we'll note that there is a petition in today's council meeting concerning fees, which is obviously something that a number of residents have raised. And I think the importance for us as a council to make sure that our local laws, while reflecting Casey and our needs, are also are benchmarked and they're consistent with other councils. I think it's important, given what's happened to our council over many years recent. I think it's important that we're not the anomaly again. We need to have laws that meet our community needs and that also are consistent broadly with other councils. And fees are exactly the same in relation to that. So I think that's all I'll touch on at this point, but I'm wholeheartedly supportive of this motion. I'd like to thank councillors and express my support. Thank you. Given that there's no further speakers, If anyone did want to speak, they can still, if you'd like to raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll now move to a vote. On that note, I'll now ask councillors in terms of the motion that's on the screen and that's been discussed, if you could please raise your hand and take a vote on this motion. All those in favour? Looking around, I think that's unanimous. Sorry. Sorry, councillors. I'm just trying to get full screen to see if. Thanks for keeping your hand raised. I believe we've got all councillors in favour of this motion, so I'll count that as all 12. So thank you for that. All those, any councillors against, if you please raise your hand now. So move your hand down if you're in favour. If you're against, raise your hand. No hands. So thank you, councillors. That has been unanimously passed. Thank you. All right. We will now move on to our second officer report, which is 4.2. And that motion is in relation to road discontinuous. This is in regards to Soffra Road and Bells Road crossing. This was an item that was on the February agenda that has been carried over to this meeting. And the officer speaking in relation to this report is Catherine Surlis, Manager of Growth and Investment. Catherine, are you on the online and are you able to speak to the report?
Sure. Good evening, councillors. And through you, Mayor, this report represents the conclusion of a statutory and procedural process to discontinue a very small sliver of Soffra Road to enable the crossing, the road to be constructed over a significant state government pipeline easement to connect Soffra Road to Bells Road. And we've consulted with the community and we had no submission, so looking to conclude this process via this report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Surlis. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for Ms Surlis in relation to the report? No questions. Thank you. Thank you, Ms Surlis. I'll now ask councillors, do we have a mover for the recommendation as shown on the screen? Councillor Walter, noted you as a mover. Do we have a seconder for the motion? I've got Councillor Rowe there as having first hand. Sorry, Councillor Dowling. Councillor Rowe first up. So Councillor Rowe as seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Walter?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. This is a good motion. It's a very small strip of land. I've been briefed on it, and it really does not affect any properties. And it actually, this road that will be constructed will be a good connection between two communities and give easier access to Bells Road, which is going to be a secondary way to get to the freeway instead of using Clyde Road.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Rights waived. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is there any opposition to the motion? I see no opposition. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say this is a lot of residents have raised their for this actual word connecting to Bells Road. So it's good to see that this will finally come in place to connect a community and also support individuals that use it to connect to school, so to and from travelling to school. So I'm happy to see this in our report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Would anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I see no other speakers, so with that, I will now put it to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I've got 12 councillors in favour. Thank you. Carried. All right. Thanks, councillors. We'll now move to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4.3, which is the 2024-2025 Growing Suburbs Fund. And we have Ms. Kerry New, the Manager of City and Asset Planning, who will speak to this report. Have we got you there, Ms. New?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, and good evening, councillors. So this report is talking to the Victorian Government having allocated funding through the Growing Suburbs Fund. It's a $5 million fund that council can make applications for. It's a competitive grants program and it helps growth area councils plan and build facilities needed to support growing communities. So in this particular funding round, we're seeking to apply for 3 projects which align with the criteria. The first priority is a project at the Hallam Community Learning Centre and an expansion proposed there. The second priority project is the Courtney Avenue and Hoysted Avenue Reserve District Playground upgrade. The third priority is a renewal project at the Doveton Neighbourhood Learning Centre. The combined value of these projects is $3 million and council would be seeking $1.5 million in funds through the program. And as a requirement of the program, we seek council endorsement to submit the application for these 3 projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. New, for that report. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for Ms. New in relation to the report? No questions. Thank you. So, councillors, do we have a mover for the recommendation as noted on the screen? Councillor Rowe, moving. Thank you. And councillors, do we have a seconder? Got Councillor Pereira there, first hand up. Thank you. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rowe, I can't hear you there. Maybe.
So,
yes.
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Seconder, Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very briefly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, just as a former councillor of Rivergum Ward that used to cover these areas, I am very happy that this is being put forward. It is an older area and does need renewal, and these are vital organisations that, you know, the communities, they're well used. So I'm very pleased to see this being included for applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would anyone else, is there any opposition to the motion? No opposition, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on the motion? Thank you, councillors. See no hands raised. On that note, then I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you, councillors. Yep, I've got 12 in favour. Thank you. And that's carried. Thank you, councillors. All right, I'll now move on to our next report, which is 4.4, which is 2025 Growth Areas Infrastructure Contribution Fund applications. And we again have Ms. New to speak to this report. Thank you, Ms. New.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Similar to the previous report, this is around council seeking funds to support development of infrastructure within our growth areas. The Victorian Government's 2025 Growth Area Infrastructure Contribution Program has been opened up, and councils are able to nominate projects that would support transport improvements for our growing community. So there's 3 projects that have been selected to be put forward. The first is a shared user path on Greaves Road in Berwick. The second, a shared user path adjacent to the Berwick-Cranbourne Road and the Clyde Fiveways Road roundabout. And the third priority is a footpath along Bellardo Road in Botanic Ridge. All of these projects would support improved connectivity in these rapidly growing communities. The projects have a combined value of $1.2 million, and council would be seeking matched funding of $636,000 from the program. Again, it is a requirement of the program that there is council endorsement of these projects, and we're seeking that through this report.
Thank you for that, Ms. New. Councillors, do you have any questions? Sorry, any questions for Ms. New? No questions, thank you. Councillors, do I have a mover for the recommendation as noted on the screen? Is that a hand raise? Oh, sorry, Councillor Perry. Yep.
I just had a question, Kerry. How often do these opportunities come up in Casey, and are they, do we drive them from our end, or are they driven from, that match funding?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Perry. We receive invitations to apply for grant funding programs. Some of them are annual programs that we regularly plan for. Others can be less programmatic, and opportunities arise. As those opportunities arise, council officers work to find projects that align with the program criteria and are projects that we have already planned for delivery as part of the council's prioritisation of projects through its capital works program. We're looking for projects we know can be delivered and that match up with the criteria and have the best opportunity for success. Not all of those programs will come to council for endorsement. It's only when the program requires that endorsement by council that you would see these kind of applications come before you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Were there any further questions? So if people had any questions on the back of that or anything they wanted to ask Ms. New? No? Okay, we'll move then back to the motion, or seeking a motion in relation to this report. Would anyone like to, do I have a mover for the recommendation as outlined on the screen? Councillor Perry, I'll take that as moving this time. And do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Taylor, I think I saw hand up go up first. Councillor Taylor, thank you. And Councillor Perry, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think, yeah, this sort of thing, they're necessary projects. That's not actually my ward, but I think it's a really important thing to be building probably across Casey, but yeah, in particular, that newer sort of part of the council area.
Thanks, Councillor Perry. And Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. These are important projects for our community. So, yeah, no, I fully support this.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there any opposition to the motion? Councillor Crowther, no opposition, but I did see your hand go up. So is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the motion? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, as the Cranbourne Ward Gardens Ward Councillor, I'd just like to support the Bellardo Road footpath. In my ward, there's lots of challenges where we've got rural roads, but that are becoming suburbia, and this is one of them. It's a major road entrance to the Cranbourne Botanic Gardens, and when the roundabout is eventually finished, there'll be even more traffic using that, and currently the pedestrians have to walk on the road and the mobility scooters as well, so a footpath is very much needed on this Bellardo Road section.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? No other hands. I might say a few words then before we go to a vote. I'm very supportive of this this recommendation and these three projects. I think I really like the common theme of shared user paths and active transport. Through my role as mayor, I've been able to get around to all parts of Casey over the last couple of months, and there's been certainly a common theme about access, and it's roads are a big part of it, but also we speak to a lot of families who, particularly in our growth areas, they want to have that ability to walk to places, and these three priorities as identified in the recommendation, I think go to that, and they're really important projects. So I'm hoping that we'll be successful in these applications, and it's an important part of improving our accessibility in our community. So I'm in full support of this motion. Would anyone else like to speak? Final opportunity on this report? No other speakers. So on that note, I will put this motion to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. I believe all hands are raised, so that's unanimous. That is carried. Thank you. All right. Moving on now to our final officer report for this evening's meeting is 4.5, which is the quarterly community report for the period October to December 2024. And the officer speaking to this report is Marion Gregg, Strategy, Innovation and Transformation. Miss Gregg, have we got you on the line?
We do, through you,
Thank
Mayor,
you.
And good evening, councillors. So this item is to present the quarterly community report. The quarterly community report provides a summary of council's performance for the period of 1st of October to the 31st of December and really reflects our commitments in the council plan and budget and our performance against those. The fourth year of the council plan 2021 to 25 has a total of 35 actions planned for completion, including 2 that were carried over from the previous financial year. All of these actions are currently in progress and tracking to plan. 6 key community engagements were undertaken during the quarter, including consultations on Casey's Road Management Plan, Berwick Springs West Playground Concept Design and the Disability Inclusion Action Plan. With respect to our capital works program, the program features an investment of $139.5 million, including a carry forward of $38.8 million to deliver approximately 336 projects during the year. During this quarter, several significant community projects were completed, and these are all detailed in the report. Finally, with respect to council's financial performance, the report shows council's financial position currently tracking 4.9% favourable to budget, and council will continue to regularly monitor its position compared to budget. So given that, we have 2 recommendations for this report. The first is that council endorse the quarterly community report prior to it being published on the City of Casey website. And the second is that council note, as required under section 97 of the Local Government Act, that a revised budget is not required. There are no changes to the declared rates and charges, no new borrowings, and no material changes to council's cash result. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gregg. Councillors, does anyone have any questions for Ms Gregg in relation to the report presented this evening? No questions. Thank you. So on that note, do we have a mover for the recommendation as noted on the screen? I have Councillor Ross there. I had first hand up, so thank you, Councillor Ross. And do we have a seconder for the motion as on the screen? Councillor Walter, thank you for that. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So first of all, thank you to the council officers who've put the time and effort into preparing the quarterly community report. This report is an important part of the transparency of local government. That's where the council report on how they're tracking in terms of strategic direction and goals that as a community, the residents have helped set. One of the things I'd like to highlight is the results of the Kids Co-Designing Healthy Places project, which is a Monash University project supported by the Vic Health Local Government Partnership, primarily aimed at children 8 to 14. And data from that helped identify 3 key priorities that for children in this age group, which were parks, public recreation facilities and amenities. Second, feeling safe, well-being and that sense of belonging. And thirdly, alcohol and drug exposure and crime. So this gives us a real snapshot of what matters most to our kids of this age and all the work that needs to be done, particularly, with helping kids feel safe and welcome in a community that they can get out and move around in. So in general, this type of community consultation provides an opportunity to generate new ideas, gather new information and stress test ideas. It's essential for good planning and strategic outcomes. And I encourage residents who wish to be informed to have their say and to stay across what is happening in Casey, to engage in as many opportunities as for community consultation as you can, and to read the quarterly community report. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it includes a lot of information. And if you do take the time and you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and either email me or email council staff so that we can follow those up for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. And the seconder of the motion, would you like to speak to it?
Through you, Mayor, yes.
Thanks.
I will echo Councillor Ross's sentiments, as these quarterly reports give the residents an opportunity to look behind the curtain and see what the council is doing for them every single day. And it's not only just fun things like the playgrounds and recreation reserves, it's also putting us in a place with business and arts and culture, just to try to make everyone one Casey, which I think is very important. And I'd also say, along with my fellow councillors, I'm sure we all have the same sentiments, that we do want to hear from you. If there is anything you need, please tell us so we can get those implemented. So maybe your idea might be on a quarterly report in the future.
Thank you for that, Councillor Walter. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to the motion? No speakers in opposition. So would anyone else like to speak on the motion? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I'd also like to thank the team for this report. I'd particularly like to highlight an item in my ward, which is the Pearcedale Recreation Reserve, which the Mayor and I went to the official opening in February, but in this report it was still under progress. The netball and football facilities and the female-friendly change rooms. It was an awesome facility, and it's great to see it's got well used. I would actually like to also highlight one other thing in this report, which is the South Gippsland Highway, Bellardo Road roundabout. I think I get a message every day about this roundabout, and particularly in the last month where there seems to be no action happening. I can assure residents that I have spoken to council officers quite a few times, and it is still progressing, and hopefully we'll be heading towards a completion in the middle of this year. So it is heading in the right direction.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crowther. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No other speakers. I might take the liberty to say a few words as well. I think just to reiterate Councillor Ross's comments, I think this is a really important document for those, there is a lot of interest in our council at the moment, and for those who want to see the work that's being done, I think this is a great snapshot, 4 times a year, that just shows how we're tracking in relation to our community vision and our strategic goals. And these are the things that councillors, our role that we're learning and being part of at the moment in the new council is establishing and formulating these type of strategic documents. So we've been doing, for the sake of residents, we've been doing a lot of work around our community vision that we'll be delivering in a couple of months' time, that will outline the path that us as a new council and councillors want to take over the next 4 years, and these documents are a reflection on that strategic work that councils do. I'd like to just also reiterate, Councillor Crowther, the positive experience we had down at Pearcedale in recent weeks for the official opening. I know that community's been waiting a long time for that project to be delivered, and straight after that, Councillor Crowther was in my ear saying we need to do more and more for her community. So we look forward to continuing to work with that community and all communities across Casey to get better outcomes. at a local level, I think playgrounds have been a focus of our discussions as councillors, and there is an update here, and people in the community may not be aware, but just in the last quarter, I've got the list here. 5 more playgrounds have been upgraded across the city of Casey. So there is a lot of work being done, and I think it's important to reflect on that and make sure it's tracking well. And in this case, it's in progress, and we're on track to meet our expectations, which is really positive. So I've got full support of this report. It's thorough, and I'd support the motion. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No. Oh, Councillor Ambrose.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank for the councillors bringing some wonderful things that they've identified in this report. For those that are watching, this report is available in our agenda and also can be accessible online if you do wish to look at it and also see what's been contributing into the community. But also I can see there's been some wonderful playgrounds in the Claw Award, so it's great to see they're being built, and I know some of the feedback I've received that people have been using it, so it's fantastic to see. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. On that, if there's no further speakers, raise your hands if you do want to speak, but I think we've exhausted all councillors' requests to speak. So I will now move this motion to a vote. All those in favour? Just check my other screen. That's 12 hands. So thank you, councillors. That's carried. Appreciate your time on that. And that completes our officer reports for this evening. And I'll just move now to our agenda. So the next item on our agenda is item 5, which is the consideration of reports of committees. I note the reports of committees as listed in the agenda papers, which is actually, where have I got now? There's no reports for this current meeting, so that is quite a short agenda item. So there's nothing to be moved on that front. So I'll now move on to item 6, which is petitions. And there were 2 petitions received by council for this council meeting. And I'll now just note those. So item 6.1, which the title of the petition is Support for Home-Based Business, 8 Lawson Close, Cranbourne. Do I have a councillor to table this petition? Councillor Eaves, thank you.
My recommendation is that the petition be referred to the Chief Executive Officer to respond to the head petitioner and provide a response to the matters raised in the petition. This petition requests that the City of Casey acknowledge our community support for this home-based business and takes this demonstration of neighbourhood endorsement into consideration in any matters relating to this business operation. This is in regards to a small business operated by Steve Papp in Lawson Close, Cranbourne. Steve operates a solar business installing solar panels onto caravans on his property behind gates. The 10 signatures on this petition represent a majority of residents in Lawson's Close. Small businesses are important to Casey's economy and residents' prosperity. Small businesses represent about 94% of all businesses, and 70% operate out of home or from home. Indeed, a popular style of new home in the Cranbourne West Industrial Estate includes a large space suitable for the homeowner's business activities. I wish Steve well in his endeavours. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Eaves. So that petition has been tabled and noted. I'll now move to item 6.2. So the title of that petition is Say No to Casey Council Private Land Permits and Fee Gouging Petition. So I will table that petition, which has been provided to us via Council Watch, and I'm similar to Councillor Reeves, we'll ask that this petition be referred to the Chief Executive to respond to the head petitioner and provide a response to the matters raised in the petition. Now that it's obviously a similar statement to Councillor Reeves. That is common. That's common practice in terms of how petitions are received and handled. But I will speak to the petition now briefly. We were aware, obviously, as we noted in our earlier report regarding the Casey Community Local Law, that there has been concerns raised by a number of residents around the fees related to private land permit uses. So I think this petition's obviously been accepted and it acknowledges those concerns. I will note that earlier in the meeting we have passed a motion unanimously as councillors to refer the Casey Community Local Law 2023 to a comprehensive full review, and part of that review involves a review of the fees associated with these permits that are referred to in this petition. And a key part of that is a benchmarking exercise to ensure that council's fees are consistent and reflect, I guess, what is out there in other councils. Because as I mentioned in the report, we don't want to be seen as or to be out of step with other councils. We want to make sure that we're benchmarked or even beating that. So I think that's an important it's an important matter to note that we have tried to address some of these concerns raised in this petition, but we do want to have on the record that this petition was received. So I will table that, and that has been tabled and noted. So thank you, councillors. I will now move to item 8, which is notice of motion. Item 7. I've got ahead of myself there. Just bring up the agenda. Okay, so yeah, notice of motion, item 7. So we have one notice of motion for this evening's council meeting, and I'll just read it. It's stated on the screen, but I will read out the title just for context for those who may be listening online. So it's the title of the notice of motion is Advocating to the State Government and EPA regarding the proposed waste transfer station at the Hampton Park Hill. Now, the mover of this, this notice of motion has been raised by Councillor Pereira, who will be the mover of this. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would. Actually, do you want to ask for a seconder before I speak?
Get you to speak to it first, and then in that context, we can then request a seconder who's I guess aware of it. I think that's it.
I have got a speech written, so through you, if that's okay. Good evening, Mayor, fellow councillors, council officers and valued members of our community. Tonight, I speak on an issue that has deeply concerned residents across Casey, the proposed waste transfer station in Hampton Park. This community had the Hallam Road tip extension imposed on them many years ago and then promised a parkland when it eventually closes. For many years, they have suffered with the ongoing stinking odours and pollution that have severely impacted in their quality of life. Many residents have told me they've had to consider selling up and moving out. It's been so awful to live there. Then in 2018, the state government identified this site as having statewide significance in their waste and recovery hub strategy. What a shock this was to residents who were expecting their parkland. From the outset, our community has been outspoken in their opposition, raising valid concerns about environmental and social impacts, odour and noise pollution, increased traffic congestion, potential health risks, fire hazards, and the overall effect on the well-being of our residents. Casey residents have now united to oppose this new waste transfer station proposal, which is across the road, literally from residential areas. People here are sick of living in the rubbish capital. They're speaking up at meetings, signing petitions and making their voices heard. This is community spirit at its best. People standing up for their neighbourhoods, fighting for what they believe in and working together for the greater good. Groups like the Lynbrook Residents Association, in particular Vern and Ray, Casey Residents and Ratepayers Association, Anthony, Hampton Park Progress Association, the We Say No group and St Kevin's Church have been instrumental in voicing the concerns of our community and keeping this issue at the forefront. Their incredible efforts are truly appreciated. A special thank you to our Mayor and Deputy Mayor for their leadership and support during this process. I also wish to extend my heartfelt gratitude to MPs Anne-Marie Hermans for tabling the 2 petitions signed by over 4,400 residents to Parliament and speaking so very passionately on our behalf. A big thank you also to MP Rachel Payne for her concern and strong show of support. A special thank you to my team, you know who you are, and also a very special thank you to the officers for their support. The new council has shown a strong commitment to listening to residents and making decisions based on their needs. My fellow councillors have worked tirelessly to engage with the people we represent, understand their concerns, and ensure their voices are central to our decision making. As a result, this council has had a change of mind, and now is the time to take decisive action to protect the well-being of our community. I've put forward this notice of motion to formally lobby against the waste transfer station in Hampton Park. This is our opportunity to demonstrate that we are a council that not only listens, but truly acts in the best interest of our residents. A facility like this has no place in the middle of our heavily populated suburbs. Our community's health, safety, and quality of life must come first now and for future generations. I urge my fellow councillors to support this motion to find a more suitable location and to give our residents back their promised parkland and their peace. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pereira. Following that motion or moving, would there be a seconder for this notice of motion? I saw Councillor Taylor's hand go up first, so I'll take Councillor Taylor as seconding this motion. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, I strongly support Councillor Pereira's motion regarding the proposed waste transfer station at Hampton Park Hill. This is a critical issue for many in our community, particularly those residents who will be living in close proximity to the facility. Hampton Park Hill isn't the right location for this facility. It's just 250 metres from homes, putting a large number of our residents within the 500 metre buffer zone. We're talking about increased traffic, potential air pollution, noise pollution, health and safety risks. So, this motion is about standing up for our community, and I think it's about ensuring that our state government and EPA don't just pay lip service to our communities, but they actually take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. With the mover and seconder having spoken, is there anyone who is in opposition to the motion, would like to speak in opposition to the motion? Thank you, councillors. So on that, would anyone else like to speak to the motion as presented? I'll go Councillor Reeves. I saw her hand go up first, then Councillor Perry, Councillor Dazon, then Councillor Ambrose. Thanks, Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. I strongly support this motion too. In my ward, the residents in Lyndhurst live within 3 k's of the proposed waste transfer station as a crow flies. Last Friday, if the wind was blowing in the opposite direction, most of Lyndhurst would have smelt the odours coming from the tip and any odours that would come from the proposed new waste transfer station. What my residents want is reassurance as to what is going to happen, that Casey Council are acting to protect the residents' best interests, and this is doing what is required to protect residents' well-being and prosperity. Council needs to communicate with the residents to achieve this, and I think this motion goes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. I've got Councillor Perry next, based on the hands raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Councillor Pereira was saying, that we need to lobby state government and the EPA, and we need a plan B. Since we started at council, that I felt that either we approve this or we're trucking, 300 trucks a day over the Westgate Bridge to Ravenhall. There needs to be a plan B. There needs to be another option. Yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Dizon.
Yes, through you, Mayor, I also fully support this motion because it reflects the voices of our community. Residents have raised serious concerns about the proposed waste transfer station at the Hampton Park Hill, and it is our duty as councillors to advocate on their behalf. Advocating to the state government and EPA is a crucial step in holding operators accountable and protecting our residents. And I do strongly urge my fellow councillors to support this motion and stand with our community.
Thank you, Councillor Dizon. Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, I would also like to thank Councillor Pereira for bringing this notice of motion forward. I do believe that our role as a councillor is to advocate, and I think going to the ministers and also the EPA, expressing the concerns and using our platform to echo the residents' voices. I'm in full support, and I hope that, and also thank all the residents that have come up to me through any forum where it's been a community forum, it's been through meeting with us on the phone and emails and providing their concerns to me. I've heard your stories and thank you for sharing them with us. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Would any other councillors like to speak? I've got Councillor Crowther, and then if anyone else will grab that after that. Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I'd also like to thank Councillor Pereira for her advocacy on this issue and preparing this notice of motion. I think we should strongly support this motion and be advocating strongly for our community to the EPA and the state government. I live in Cranbourne, in the area with the most odour reports in the whole of Victoria currently, and I can tell you that the frustration of our residents when you're impacted by the odour currently in our area. And so we really need to consider before we add to this issue by adding the proposed waste transfer station at Hampton Park Hill, because once the facility is built, I feel like in our situation, there's not much we could do with our odour reporting. So we really need to be strongly considering before we build a new facility.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion on the screen? No other councillors, so I'll take the opportunity to provide some comment. I will be supporting this motion. I think it's a well-written motion, and I'd like to thank Councillor Pereira for her thoughtful approach to how to tackle what is a very long-standing issue for our community. I think some context that is important. I've heard a lot of people who are still talking in reference to the landfill, and the landfill is actually scheduled to close. And part of this proposal is actually the closure of the landfill is being considered with the change to a waste transfer station. So that is a difference in the two, but I still do hold concerns, and I've heard from residents, had extensive meetings with resident groups and other residents and with our councillors as we've been listening to the community. And there are genuine concerns about the location and the close proximity to housing in Hampton Park and Lynbrook. And we want to be the voice of those concerns for residents as your new council. I think I take as Mayor a little bit more of a strategic approach around this issue as well. We do need to be mindful that with the landfill scheduled to close due to it being full, we do need to have a pathway forward for our waste processing, and this is a significant issue that we will be facing as councillors and as a community and across the southeast. So I support this motion because it is forward-looking. It's opening the option to discuss alternative locations, and I think we need to be having those conversations now as councillors across Casey and the southeast, in light of the fact that the EPA is currently considering the development licence. If this development licence is not approved, then the proposal as it stands is not able to go ahead. And so we need to be having these conversations, I think, now, and this is a good step in that direction. Just for context for residents, so the EPA is currently considering the development licence, and part of that consideration is in reference to their own separation guidelines, separation distance guidelines, which were updated last year to reflect 500 metres from residential properties. And this proposed location is approximately 250 metres from residential properties. So in that context, I support this motion, given it's forward-looking, and it will have my support. Thank you, councillors. Does anyone else like to speak to the motion before we put it to a vote? No other speakers. On that note, I will now ask for all those in favour of this notice of motion to please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. I have 12 councillors in support. That's unanimously carried. Thank you, councillors. All right. On that note, I think we will now move. Please bear with me as I get back to my agenda. We will now move to item 8, which is public questions. So I'll just... Sorry, councillor, just bring up my agenda. Bear with me. So public questions. So we, before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank all of the community members who've taken the time to submit your questions for this evening's meeting. So there are a number of important topics that have been raised in the following questions, which we're going to address. Some of these, as I have mentioned in some commentary, are quite technical in nature, and we do appreciate that some of the responses, they do need to quote relevant legislation or procedures or the governance rules, and we've asked officers to do their best to keep the responses simple and easy to understand for those that are of an operational nature and go to that. And some of the responses will be a bit technical and detailed, but it is important that we get thorough responses to these questions. We, as councillors and as mayor, we've appreciated the feedback from some members of the community around the way that questions are being answered, and we're taking that on board in terms of when we're responding. So I will now hand over to the CEO, Glenn Patterson, who will be asking the questions as they've been received.
Thank you, Mayor. The first question is from Tracy Whelan. I'm aware that the newly elected councillors are no longer allowed to be involved in the town planning application process. At what stage after the decision has been made by the planning department can the councillors look over the decision and be allowed to offer an opinion, bearing in mind that the councillors are responsible for the running of all council decisions and therefore become responsible for all decisions made by council officers? Your response, please, and that will be responded to by Mr. Collins. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for your question, Tracy. So councillors can access information about all planning permit applications at any stage of the decision-making process via the planning team. We have instruments of delegation in place, which means our planning officers have the authority to make decisions regarding planning permit applications. The protocols for councillors' land use planning are separate and provide guidance for councillors if they wish to call in a particular planning application to have it determined by councillors at a council meeting. Any matters that are called in should be in a broader community interest and must be supported by the Mayor.
The next question is from Hortensio Mercuri. Why is the council not discussing the local law as the main agenda when it's a major concern for all the ratepayers? Why don't the councillors vote to overturn the protocol that prevents them from discussing town planning and local law issues when they have the authority and power to do so? And Mr. Colden will respond.
Thank you for your question. The first report on the agenda tonight was item 4.1, Casey Community Local Law 2023, and I'm pleased to reconfirm councillors have now endorsed a full review of the local law.
The next question relating to the Casey Community Local Law 2023 is from Steve Harding. With regard to the Casey Community Local Law 2023 Part 5, where permits are required, why is Clause 28(1) the only permit requirement that is conditional on the activity being detrimental to amenity, when all other clauses in that part that require a permit do so regardless of whether that activity is detrimental to amenity, requiring council officers to police permits in all described circumstances with no allowance for any assessment of amenity detriment? And Mr. Colden will respond.
Thank you for your question, Steve. Each local law clause is specific to the issue that has been drafted to address. So the intention for clause 28(1) is for it to be used in instances where mechanical businesses are operating from residential properties. So previous examples of this have shown it can create amenity issues, which a reasonable person would deem as being untidy or creating noise, nuisance, or even a smell. So for example, excessive car parts scattered across a front lawn, vehicle shells, excessive machinery, lots of tyres or oil cans, noise from the use of power tools at inappropriate times, or the smell of chemicals, lubricants or fuels impacting their neighbours. These types of activities may be detrimental to amenity, and CAUSE is intended to be able to give council officers, I should say, the tools to negate the negative impacts. Working on a project car, for example, or servicing your own vehicle, or preparing your car for a long trip is certainly not subject to this clause.
The next question relates to the transparency of council submission communications from Joseph Otimi. Being that the existing methods of contact are very limited, can the council create an email delivery group of residents that the public can opt into for all communications of council activity? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Joseph, for your question. The City of Casey has an email newsletter that residents can opt in to receive. The email newsletter, called the Casey Catch Up, is sent out monthly. Residents can sign up to receive the newsletter via Council's website, and we encourage residents to also visit our Casey Conversations website, which lists community consultation opportunities for residents to have their say on a range of projects and initiatives.
The next question relates to cost cutting for reduction of rates from Joseph Otimi. With devaluing properties of up to 20% since last year's rate, we are all expecting a 20% lower rates bill. Can council please be proactive about cutting budgets to suit their expected lower income for next year's rates? And again, Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you again, Joseph, for this question. The Valuer General determines the valuation of all properties annually as from January. The valuation of properties is used to redistribute the amount that each ratepayer contributes, ensuring that the total revenue collected remains within the state government rate cap. The total amount of rates collected by a council remains the same, regardless of whether the property values increase or decrease.
Apologies. The next question is from Tony Van Krop in relation to Veolia submitting its own risk assessment. How is this not a conflict of interest? In the last council meeting, we didn't really answer my question. You told us Veolia got around separation distances by submitting a risk assessment, its own risk assessment. Does anyone apart from me think that this should be something an independent third party should provide? Maybe council needs to undertake this activity and bill Veolia the costs. Clearly, the risk assessment they will provide will suit Veolia's agenda. Conflict of interest is the nice way to point this out. I'll also read out a further question from Troy Van Grop in relation to PA 23/0694, which is an almost identical question and which will receive the same response. And that question is that council says it relied on a report from the applicant to override EPA buffer zones. Has council tendered its own report to verify using appropriately certified people? If not, why not? Given the scale of the proposed transfer station, I'd like to think that council is protecting its income source, ratepayers. Of course, anyone the applicant pays will generate a report favouring their position. Council ought to exercise due diligence and not just tick boxes. Mr. Collins will respond to those two questions.
Thanks, Troy, for your questions, and I'll answer them both in one statement. So the risk assessment mentioned in this question is required under the EPA's separation distance guidelines and is required to address any potential odour from the waste transfer station. Our officers reviewed the risk assessment supplied by the applicant, and it was also provided to the EPA for referral comments. The risk assessment was prepared by independent consultants on behalf of Veolia. As the EPA is the primary agency responsible for managing odour, a technical review of these documents forms part of the development licence assessment. Submission of the odour assessment approved by the EPA is a condition of the planning permit.
The next question relates to permits from Steve McFarland. Why did Council introduce permits for motorbikes working on cars, etc.? Why can't we just have acceptable local laws outlining what can be done and in between what time? Why is a permit required, and in particular a cost associated with that? Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks for your question, Steve. Local law permits are an important tool for councils across Victoria, and the permits acknowledge that not all situations are the same, and they allow for an activity to occur as opposed to stopping it or only allowing it to occur during specific hours. Having a permit in place will minimise or mitigate potential negative impacts on neighbours and local amenity. The costs associated with a permit are an acknowledgement of the council resources required to investigate and administer that permit.
The next question is from Michael Bailey relating to road upgrades. Will there be an upgrade to Soldiers Road in the near future? With all the schools in the area, it needs to be double lanes in both directions between O'Shea's Road and Kangan Drive. Mr. Collins will respond to that question.
Thanks, Michael, for your question. We are aware of the traffic congestion around school zones, in particularly Soldiers Road. This congestion mainly occurs during school peak periods, while the network functions generally well outside these times. Roadworks on Clyde Road near Kangan Drive are also currently causing additional traffic onto Soldiers Road. Soldiers Road between O'Shea Road and Kangan Drive is not currently designated for duplication, and no upgrades are planned at this time.
The next question, also from Michael Bailey on the same subject. There should be a consideration entering to developing a pedestrian overpass over Clyde Road to Centre Road, as the amount of school kids that use the crossing there. It is very dangerous and people are sitting ducks in the middle of the road if an incident was to occur. Again, Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Michael. The Department of Transport and Planning are responsible for Clyde Road, including the operation of traffic signals and providing appropriate pedestrian crossing facilities. Council officers have worked with the department to ensure the pedestrian phase was long enough for students to cross Clyde Road without waiting in the middle of the road. We have also provided education material to Canberra College about safely using the traffic signals to cross Clyde Road. Since the signal timing was changed, we haven't received any further inquiries or feedback about the operation of the traffic signals at the intersection of Clyde Road and Centre Road. Hence, Council at this stage has not been advocating for a pedestrian overpass at this location.
Next question relates to the Department of Public Prosecution from Brian Oates. IBAC took 3 years investigating the matter of corruption in Casey Council, then had to send all the evidence to the DPP, who have done nothing in over 18 months now. We need justice to be done. Will the Council advocate to the DPP to finalise the prosecution of the alleged corrupt former councillors and others involved as soon as possible? And Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Brian, for your question. The Operation Standard investigation and prosecutions arising from that investigation are matters for the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission and the Department of Public Prosecutions. Although Council has no role in this process, we are looking forward to further updates from the Victorian Government on how the recommendations of Operation Standard are being fully implemented.
Next question relates to private land permits from Jane Smith. Will the private land permit be overturned as so many residents are against it? And how can you tell us what we can do in our own homes as we own them? Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks for your question, Jane. A report was presented earlier at tonight's council meeting that considers options for review of the local law, and that'll also look at the private land use permits. Under the Local Government Act 2020, councils have the power to make local laws, and councils utilise these local laws to respond to issues and community needs. Local laws are no different to other pieces of legislation that regulate what we're able to do on private land, such as the Environmental Protection Act or planning regulations.
The next question relates to the state of footpaths from Tracy Speck. The council claims to be inclusive for all, yet our footpaths, particularly in Casey Fields and Livingston estates, have become increasingly unsafe, especially for the elderly and people with disabilities. Instead of proper repairs, we see quick fixes like painted lines and temporary asphalt, which do not address the real hazards. Given the serious risk of injury, what actions will the council take to ensure our footpaths are genuinely safe and accessible before someone gets seriously hurt? And Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Tracy. Our footpaths are inspected in accordance with our Road Management Act. That means that we do proactive inspections in this area once every 3 years, with repairs and replacements carried out when required or in response to community feedback. The treatments applied to industry practices and similar to what is carried out at other municipalities. If there are specific locations that you have concern, then I encourage you to reach out to council officers or council, and we can inspect these locations.
The next question, also from Tracy Speck, relates to road safety. The Casey Fields estate, speeding remains a serious safety issue on multiple streets. 3 years ago, residents were informed that the council had plans to install speed humps, yet nothing has been done. The situation has worsened to the point where children have already been hit. When will the council take real action and prioritise residents' safety by implementing proper traffic calming measures? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Tracy. 2 speed humps are being installed this financial year on Lineham Drive in Cranbourne East under Council's local traffic management program. One will be placed between Adrian Street and Nelson Street, and the other between Nelson Street and Casey Fields Boulevard. The local adjoining streets in this state have traffic calming measures.
The next question has been submitted by Gary Page in relation to valuation of land. Council meeting 18th of the 2nd, 2025, public question 27 states, it is a well-established principle that the valuation of land is not a relevant planning consideration. Given the planning permit for construction of the waste transfer station on Lot 10A, boundary realignment of Lot 2A and Lot 10A, plus exchange of Lot 4 and Lot 1, does this mean the council never takes valuation of land into consideration in all of these or any other decisions relating to open space for residents? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Gary. When it comes to the assessment and consideration of planning permit applications, there is no requirement for council to obtain land value information. This includes instances there is a proposed realignment of boundaries between lots where the land is privately owned. Information regarding the land exchange at the Hallam Road landfill, lots 1, 2 and 4, is available on our website in a council report and minutes of the 18th of February 2020 council meeting.
The next question from Gary Page relates to the Cultural Heritage Management Plans. Are there any Aboriginal Heritage Act 2006 Cultural Heritage Management Plans approved for any of lots on Plan of Subdivision 517790K, Hallam Road landfill site? If not, why not? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Gary. There's no cultural heritage management plan required for the Hallam Road landfill site, as the site was significantly disturbed in the 1950s by quarrying for sand, which substantially altered the natural surface of the area. Most recently, advice from qualified heritage advisors submitted with the application for the waste transfer station confirmed that the site was substantially disturbed and a mandatory report was not required.
The next question is from Wendy Davidson in relation to the general upkeep of Casey. The amount and height, some calf height, of weeds growing out of the concrete of the traffic lights and median strips in the area are unsightly. There has been no upkeep for 12 to 18 months. Our rates cover parks and gardens, which would include this area. Can we please have a date that these weeds are going to be attended to? And again, Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Wendy. Council and the Department of Transport and Planning both maintain areas surrounding roads, such as median strips. If you're happy to contact us, our customer service team, with specific locations, you have noticed long grass or weeds, we can determine if it's our responsibility and we can take action, or another land manager.
The next question relates to satellite precincts from Wendy Davidson. There's been a lot of talk about satellite cities. Clive Palmer has now also mentioned them. When the 20-minute satellite cities are in full swing, what is going to be the focal start point for the 20-minute boundaries? Will it be our residential addresses, a landmark, or by suburb? Again, Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Wendy. The 20-minute neighbourhoods are part of the Victorian Government's long-term strategy plan for Victoria. The concept is to support people to access important services within a 20-minute walk from home. They don't specify any boundaries in their documentation.
Next question has been submitted by Brian Oates regarding caretaker mode. As I understand it, Casey City Council was in caretaker mode from the 17th of September. Caretaker mode was, I understand, imposed in part to ensure that actions and decisions which could be seen to have a significant impact on the incoming council could not be made. Is it proper that the administrators should have been able to make decisions on matters that have recently made significant impact on the incoming councillors? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Brian. Council complied with the caretaker period from 17th of September through to 6 p.m. on the 26th of October. During this time, the only council meeting that was held was a special council meeting on 15th of October for the purpose of adopting the annual report and the final administrator's report to the minister. As per the Local Government Act 2020, these reports may be endorsed during the caretaker period.
The next question relates to the confirmation of requirement of planning application 23/0994 from Raymond Darley. Can City Planners and James Collins confirm his verbal statement that the proposed waste transfer station planning approval PA 23/0694 could be approved under the existing Hampton Park development plan and that it did not require a planning scheme amendment as per the proposed Hampton Park Hill Development Plan C294, which is yet to be approved by the Minister of Planning? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Raymond. A planning permit application for a waste transfer station can be considered and approved under the existing planning controls and development plan applying to the Hampton Park Hill precinct. The planning scheme amendment C294 that you outlined proposes some changes to the existing planning controls, but it does not prohibit or prevent planning permit applications being submitted for the permitted uses in the existing schedule to the special use zone. There is no legal reason why consideration and a decision could not be made for a planning permit application for a transfer station, and it is currently a permitted use under the existing planning controls.
The next question, also from Raymond Daly, relates to the 500-metre landfill gas buffer restrictions. Can the City of Casey please inform me, as well as the other 1,350 property owners, in detail of exactly what we can now no longer do on our own properties and what measures we must undertake at our own expense when we request a future building permit, given that our land has now been encumbered with the 500-metre landfill gas buffer zone that the property owners were never made aware of when building or buying family homes? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Raymond. The EPA landfill buffer guidelines are not considered under the building regulations if you're applying for a building permit on your property. Consideration of the buffer is given when assessing planning permit applications for proposed works on a property within the buffer zone.
The next question has been submitted by Norm Keane in relation to the new permit system. I would like to know what gives you the right to enter my property without notice when Victoria Police must have a search warrant to enter. Are you above the law? Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks for your question, Norm. The local laws officers here at Casey are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. The Act states that an authorised officer may enter land or building in the municipal district at any reasonable time to carry out or enforce any other act or regulation of the local law. This means that a local laws officer can enter private land to investigate any breach of the local law and may impound any items found causing that breach of the local law or arrange for works to be carried out to rectify a breach of the law.
The next question is also from Norm Keane in relation to the new permit system. What consideration have you given to the mental health of families by restricting them from working on hobbies, project cars, or whatever else they choose to do in their own garage on their own properties? As long as I don't upset my neighbours, then it is none of your business. Again, Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Norm. Local laws play an important role in balancing property owners' use and also the enjoyment of their land while protecting community amenity and safety. There are no restrictions in place for people undertaking hobbies or working on project cars on their properties.
The next question has been submitted by Melinda Taylor in relation to unregistered vehicles. In the update on the removed cars dated the 14th of February, it was stated that after receiving complaints, council officers attended the property. On your website, as of today, it states any unregistered car is classed as abandoned. However, if that vehicle is on private property, Casey Council cannot investigate the report and must be taken up with the property owner. Why was this instance treated differently to your own guidelines? Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Melinda. This section of Council's website relates to an unregistered and abandoned vehicles in public places, such as abandoned cars on a road. The update shared on 14th Feb relates to an ongoing matter on private land. Unregistered vehicles on private land are regulated under the Casey Community Local Law 2023, and unregistered or abandoned vehicles in a public place are dealt with under Schedule 11 of the Local Government Act 1989.
Melinda Taylor has submitted the next question as well, which is relating to the protection of the community. What, if any, thorough background checks and training are undertaken prior to council officers being able to have carte blanche access to any property within the community? What protection does the community have to ensure there is no history of any illegal undertaking, e.g. domestic violence against men or women from that person, either reported officially or not officially? Is there a check prior to any one person from the council attending to a place, house or property? And Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Melinda, for your question. All employees undertake a police check on a yearly basis or when they obtain a new role internally within the organisation. Any police checks that return a notification of any legal matter is reviewed on a case-by-case basis and any possible impact on their role. All employees are also required to have a valid working with children's check, and these are managed in the same way as described above. In addition to all employees all employees are required to abide by our internal policies relating to the use of customer information or council equipment and our code of conduct. Breaches of this are taken very seriously, and following an appropriate investigation that could lead to termination of their employment with council. There are also internal compliance training that is required to be refreshed annually.
The next question is from Michael Ball in relation to the Berwick Springs Lake renaming. An FRO request outlines in an email from DFFH to Casey on the October the 17th, 2023, quote, stakeholder meeting July 2023, Casey will lead the community consultation, unquote. Also noting the Sikh community has been consulted on the lake's new name from July 2022. Then on the 11th of December 2023, an email from Casey, Growth and Investment, to the Registrar of GNV states Casey has considered the requirements and implications of leading the consultation and is not in a position to do so. Question, why? What was Casey afraid of? And Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Michael. After considering the matter, it was determined that the relevant landowner and naming authority, that being the state government, should lead the consultation with the community, which is a requirement of the state government's geographical naming Victoria. It is unclear to us how this requirement was not met by the state government, who do have a dedicated website to undertake such consultations, and which it is currently doing for another project in a new growth area in Casey. Our role was to support and promote any consultations they delivered via our channels, and we are disappointed that this did not occur.
The next question is also from Michael Ball relating to the Berwick Springs Lake renaming. An FRI request outlines in an email from DFFH to Casey on the 17th of October 2023, quote, stakeholder meeting July 2023, Casey will lead the community consultation, unquote. Also noting the Sikh community had been consulted on the lake's new name from July 2022. Then, on the 11th of December 2023, an email was from Casey. Sorry, this is actually repeating the previous question. That's been submitted twice. I think we'll move on to the next question. The next question has been submitted from Amanda Haslam into relation to bike path condition. My son has started high school at Alkira this year. Public transportation is non-existent from this side of the highway, so the most time-efficient way for him to attend school is to bicycle using the bike path between Narre Cranbourne Road and Glasscox Road. Is Council responsible for this path, and if so, what will be done to ensure that it is a safe path for the children to use? As it stands, it seems to be neglected and will not be safe to use over winter. If not, who is responsible? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Amanda. The section of land that you're talking about between Narre Cranbourne Road and Glasscox Road is council owned, but it's an undeveloped reserve. So the undeveloped reserve does not contain any formal pathways. It only contains an informal trail.
The next question is from Felicity James about the Bellato Road roundabout with South Gippsland Highway. What is the truthful, realistic timeframe for this to be completed? What action has been taken with regards to the decisions made around this project to ensure that such delays and inconvenience do not occur again? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Felicity. The project is currently scheduled to be completed by mid-2025. We have been working with the main contractor undertaking the work and third-party service authorities to ensure all relevant approvals and asset protection works are completed as quickly as possible. Protection works of major assets are now completed, so there is no further approvals are required, and the project is scheduled to be completed, as I said, in middle of 2025.
The next question is from Malcolm Sharp about Berwick Springs Lake renaming. On the 25th of May 2024, the Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Ingrid Stitt, wrote to the Minister for Planning, Sonia Kilkenny, seeking ministerial direction to rename Berwick Springs Lake. In the letter, she stated the City of Casey has also provided support for the proposed landmark location. Please can you confirm the support provided by the City of Casey for the proposed landmark location and any other support Casey has provided for the name of Lake Guru Nanak? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Malcolm. As we are unaware of and have not seen the correspondence, we cannot provide a detailed response and what is being referred to. Notwithstanding this, Council has never formed a position via resolution to support or otherwise for renaming the lake.
The next question is from Paul Greenman about transparency. Does the new Casey councillors have a set of managers overseers being paid around $1,325 per day to control the new councillors' decisions? Who installed them and who pays for them? And Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Paul. On 12th September 2024, the state government appointed 2 municipal monitors to the City of Casey for 12 months. The state government sets the amount that council must pay the monitors during their term.
The next question is from Raymond Van Roost in relation to the Public Council Meeting and Local Government Governance Act 2 questions. Why is Council attempting to unlawfully block the public's lawful rights to attend in person the monthly meeting, which is open to the public in accordance with the current Local Government Act 2020? Why is the Council attempting to cite the 1989 Local Government Governance Act, which has been revoked and superseded multiple times, noting that the current Act is the Local Government Act Governance Act 2020? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Raymond. We acknowledge that community members may be disappointed that the March Council meeting is being hosted online. Whilst our new councillors would like to return to in-person meetings, following the February Council meeting, we received advice from Victoria Police and are taking their advice. We worked to inform our community as soon as possible that the meeting was being moved online in response to the advice from the Victoria Police and in the interest of public safety. The Local Government Act 1989 was not revoked. Some sections have been replaced by the 2020 Act, but all other sections remain in place.
The next question is from Andrew Galbin in relation to decisions. Is there a plan for an app or direct contact method that councillors could use to make decisions based on what the majority of residents want an outcome to be? And Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Andrew. There is no plan for an app to be developed. Our residents are encouraged to speak directly with their ward councillor around matters that they are interested in or participate in open engagement opportunities on the council's community engagement website called Casey Conversations. Councillor contact details are also available on our website.
The next question is also from Andrew Galbin on the same subject. Do councillors make decisions based on what majority of ratepayers actually want or based on what councillors think is best? And this question will be responded to by the Mayor.
Thank you for that, Mr. Patterson. Thanks for the question to councillors, Andrew. I hope you're well. As councillors, we actively engage with the community prior to making decisions. This can be in many forms, from conversations, emails, phone calls, or online engagement, as well as other more structured consultation processes. This engagement helps us ensure our decisions are informed by the community and residents. The Local Government Act requires us as councillors to act in the best interests of all residents in the municipality, not just the ward that we have been elected in. In addition to this, the decisions we make are often done in the context of budget or resource constraints. As such, there are many factors that impact our decision making, the decisions we make as councillors. I hope that clarifies the decision-making process. Please be always assured that we make these decisions in the best interests of the whole of Casey, and it is our duty to do so. It's also incumbent on us as your elected representatives to communicate the reasons behind our decisions. If you ever have any questions regarding our decisions that we've made, you're welcome to contact me directly as your ward councillor. Thank you.
The next question is from Craig Bishop about private land use. I note that the council says they receive over 10,000 complaints each year. My question is, how many are received in regard to someone working on their own car, whether it be in their backyard or in their garage? I would like to know the number. Is it 4, 5, 8, 10, etc.? Casey Council, which covers such a vast area, would have to be a high number to warrant action. Providing all work being done is between reasonable hours, there is not an issue. Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Craig. A member of the community simply working on their car, tinkering or maintaining their vehicle on their own land certainly does not require a local laws permit. You are able to keep up to 2 unregistered vehicles on private land without a permit, and holders of Vic Roads Club permit for veteran, vintage and classic cars don't need a local law permit. As mentioned in another public question response, local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. And Section 224 states an authorised officer may enter any land or building in the municipal district at any reasonable time to carry out or enforce this or any other act of the local law. This means that a local laws officer can enter private land to investigate any breach and may impound any items found causing that breach or arrange works to be carried out to rectify a breach of the local law.
The next question is also from Craig Bishop in relation to private land use. I'm not clear about machines on properties on tandem trailers. Why should I need a permit to have a machine on a tandem trailer in my backyard behind the gates for a few days? The trailer and machine would be smaller than the boat my son had in that position. It was here all the time, we're not being used. Again, behind the gates, out front of the garage. Both cause no nuisance to neighbours. Again, out of sight and out of mind. Again, this seems a massive overreach by council. And again, Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Craig. I can confirm the Casey local law does not have a clause that would restrict this type of use of trailer. Permits are not required.
The next question is from Trav Lee in relation to landowner permits. I would like my question to be answered by Councillor Lynette Pereira. Are council aware of the impact on men's mental health with the introduction of the landowner's permits? Many men use vehicles as project, hobbies and bonding with their children. The introduction of these permits has created more stresses, isolation, anxiety and depression. Council has not considered the mental health effects of these restrictions and loan owner permits must be abolished immediately. And again, that question will be answered by the Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Patterson, and thanks for the question, Trav. I'll respond to this question as Mayor. This is in accordance with our governance rules, which allows only the Chair or the CEO to respond to public questions in public meetings. However, I have liaised with Councillor Pereira regarding this response. Local laws play an important role in balancing property owners' use and enjoyment of their land, while also protecting community amenity and safety. Please note there are no restrictions in place for people undertaking hobbies or working on project cars on their properties. I hope this clarifies any concerns you may have in relation to the local law. We acknowledge that there is uncertainty around some of the information in the community now about our local laws. This is why we've taken steps tonight to address these matters. If you have any further questions about the local law, please feel free to contact myself or your ward councillor, Councillor Pereira. Thanks, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Lorraine Prattley about the renaming of Berwick Springs Lake. There is a public news statement on the City of Casey website stating Council was not involved in the naming of the lake. FOI reveals that this is contradicted by the fact that Casey Council was involved in several meetings and exchanges, including an email from DFFH on October the 17th, 2023, confirming City of Casey will lead the community consultation phase and submit the naming proposal. Why has Council been dishonest in this public statement? Mr. Collins will respond to that question.
Thanks, Lorraine. After several discussions and correspondence, Council made it clear to the relevant stakeholders that our formal position is that Melbourne Water, as the naming authority and landowner, lead the consultation process in accordance with their own guidelines. It is unclear why the state government chose not to comply with their own requirements to consult with the community. Council officers were not made aware until after the renaming had been gazetted that this was the path that the government took, disappointingly to us.
The next question is also from Lorraine Prattley about the safety of bridge at Troops Creek. The second bridge linking the walking cycling track along the creek at Meninda Terrace, Narre Warren South, not the long one, the one about 500 metres after, was burned over a year ago. It's since deteriorated a fair bit and causes concerns for riders as well as mobility affected walkers. May we please gain an idea of when the repairs will take place? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Lorraine. Council is currently engaging with Melbourne Water to demolish the existing bridge and construct a new bridge at the same location. A design and investigation report has been submitted to Melbourne Water for their review as the bridge is on their land. Feedback is expected in mid-April. Once Melbourne Water approval is received, the project will move ahead and is currently provisionally scheduled to be completed by November 2025.
The next question is from Taran Wikamasang about graffiti on the freeway and overhead rail bridge in Berwick. What are we doing about graffiti making the Casey Council an eyesore? The graffiti on the purple rail bridge in Berwick has been there for a long time and looks really bad. Also, as you drive into Berwick on the Monash Freeway, the graffiti on either side has become really bad and is making it like entering into a ghetto. Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks for your question. Unfortunately, Council is not authorised to remove graffiti within rail and freeway corridors. These are maintained by the Department of Transport and Planning. In February, Council wrote to the relevant Minister, the Minister for Transport Infrastructure, seeking assistance and advocating on behalf of residents. However, no response from the Minister has been received to date.
The next question is from Aldonia Ferreira about the Berwick Springs Lake renaming. Following the state Victorian government's unilateral, divisive, non-consultative decision to rename Berwick Springs Lake, the temporary sign erected indicated permanent signage to follow. It is now understood there are plans for a monument. Can Council please confirm whether any City of Casey rates will be allocated towards the development, installation or ongoing maintenance of permanent signage or monuments in Berwick Springs? Mr. Collins will respond.
Council has not been approached or consulted regarding any proposed signage or monument in Berwick Springs. We would not be contributing or maintaining any assets not on our land.
The next question is in relation to the Berwick Springs Lake renaming from Aldonia Ferreira. Has the City of Casey received any planning applications, concept designs or preliminary discussions regarding permanent installations at Berwick Springs Lake? If so, what is the current status of these applications? Will the City of Casey commit to ensuring community consultation occurs before any permanent installations or modifications are made at the Berwick Springs Lake site, regardless of which authority is the primary decision maker? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks for the question. The installation of any signage is exempt from a planning permit. This means that Council and the community do not have to be consulted in the future regarding the design or timing or installation of any signage on land owned by Melbourne Water. As mentioned previously, Council officers have written to the Department of Premier and Cabinet to ensure a consultation process is undertaken for the design, installation and location of any proposed signage that the state plan to put in following the receipt of the petition made by the community tabled on the 10th of December 2024 council meeting. No response has been received to date.
The next question is from Trav Lee about landowner permits. Councillor Leonard Pereira, can you please tell me how does a corporate entity that is under administration create and install new bylaws? Administrators are only meant to assess financial decisions and protect the interests of creditors, not to create or enforce new bylaws. These bylaws were introduced under false pretences. I would like to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll refer that response to the Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Patterson, and thanks for the further question, Trav. I'll respond to this question as Mayor as well, in accordance with the governance rules, which allows only the Chair or CEO and staff to respond to public questions. However, I have liaised with Councillor Pereira in regards to this response. As you may be aware, the panel of administrators were appointed following the dismissal of the Casey City Councillors under the Local Government Act, Casey City Council 2020 Bill, which passed Victorian Parliament on the 19th of February 2020. So under Section 231A of the Local Government Act 2020, administrators must perform and assume the role, including all the functions, powers and duties of a councillor, including making decisions on policy adoption. So these powers and duties would have included the decision-making around local law and the review that occurred in December 2023 prior to new councillors being elected. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Coralie Broben in relation to kindergartens. What tangible steps will the City of Casey make to ensure more working families can access the 15 hours of sessional kinder, in particular long days, e.g. 8:30am to 4pm for Botanic Ridge families? Mr. Colton will respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Coralie. We're committed to working in partnership with our early years managers within Casey to deliver high quality kinder services and respond to the increasing demand of kindergarten and the need for extra places. Botanic Ridge Kinder is managed by the early years manager Kids First Australia, and they do form part of our central registration and enrolment scheme. And this scheme ensures that there are clear registration and enrolment processes that provide equitable access to kinder and services right across Casey.
The next question is also from Coralie Broben about kindergartens. How does Council support training of new kinder teachers to ensure their training will benefit Council kinders? As in, do you provide a study rebate for those employed by the City of Casey for a specific duration of time? Mr. Colton will respond.
All City of Casey employees can apply for various entitlements such as financial and study leave as per the Council's Education Assistance Policy. In most cases at kinders, diploma qualified educators are supported to upskill their qualifications to a Bachelor of Early Childhood through Casey's Education Assistance Program.
The next question has been submitted by Deborah McCoy about the Waste Transfer Station. Can the Council confirm how the Waste Transfer Station, WTS, approval aligns with Clause 53.10 of the Victorian Planning Provisions, which sets restrictions on industrial activities near residential areas? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Deborah. Council referred the planning permit application to the EPA in accordance with the separation distance guidelines and Clause 53.10 of the planning scheme. The EPA did not object to the proposal, and further technical analysis of risk assessments for noise and odour emissions will be completed by the EPA as part of the development licence application. Conditions of the planning permit address noise, landfill, gas risk and compliance with an EPA risk management and monitoring plan, amongst other things.
The next question is also from Deborah McCoy about the Waste Transfer Station. Under Section 60 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, councils must consider significant social effects. What formal assessments have been undertaken to evaluate potential impacts on traffic congestion, air quality, noise levels and property values? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Deborah, for your second question. A traffic impact assessment, noise and air quality assessments were all submitted as part of the plan application for the Waste Transfer Station by Veolia. Planning case law has historically established that a potential change to property values is not a relevant planning consideration, and a decision must be made in accordance with the planning controls applicable at the time of making a decision. Conditions of the planning permit address noise, landfill gas risk, and compliance with the EPA risk management and monitoring plan.
The next question is submitted by Jaya Prakash Thevaraj on governance issue waste transfer facility Hallam. Given the potential conflicts of interest, legal risks, environmental concerns and community opposition, does the Council acknowledge that Council's approval raises serious governance and accountability concerns? Mr Collins will respond.
The planning permit application PA 23-0694 was considered against all the relevant legislation and planning policy for the area. The decision was made in accordance with Council's instruments of delegation.
The next question, also relating to the waste transfer facility at Hallam, also from Jaya Prakash Thevaraj. Can the Council continue or guarantee that no further industrial expansions will be approved in Hampton Park Hill following the WTS? And again, Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks for your question. The Hampton Park Hill Development Plan was adopted in July 2023, and it included 3 plans that guide the future development of the precinct. These are available online. The planning permit application submitted to Council must be generally in accordance with this, the adopted development plan, and be permitted use under the planning controls that apply at that point in time.
The next question relates to item 4 on tonight's Council agenda, Community Local Law, from Adam Green. Given it's clear the people the Council represents are clearly unhappy with how Casey Council have conducted themselves over the local law, if the Council decides to review or change the laws, in particular the land use issues, how will you offer the ratepayers a chance for some input, and how will you advise us how and when we can give that input? Thank you. Ms. Bednar will respond to that question.
Thank you, Adam, for your question. Along with our new councillors, we are committed to meaningful engagement with our community. If councillors make the decision to review or propose a change to the local law, council will engage with the community and relevant stakeholders as early as possible in the process. Our community engagement policy includes that engagement may occur once or multiple times, depending on the scope and complexity of the project or decision. As with all community consultations, the purpose, scope and objective of the engagement will be outlined on our Casey Conversations website.
The next question is from Layana Jayaprakash, Council's position on the WTF being the subject. Does the new Council elected by residents agree with the WTF planning approvals provided by the previous Council ran by the administrators? The Mayor will answer this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. And hey, Layana, thank you for your question. The new council has expressed concerns about the waste transfer station in this location and have expressed this view to the EPA and public in relation to the development licence application and also in today's meeting. I'm aware that any view held by the new council that the planning permit for the waste transfer station should not have been granted has no effect on the validity of the existing planning permit. The newly elected councillors are considering our next course of action to best represent the interests of Casey residents and ratepayers in relation to this proposal. There, as you saw, there was a motion on the agenda in tonight's meeting in relation to this matter, which was passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Anthony Tazone about the remuneration of municipal monitors. The Victorian Government appointed 2 municipal monitors, Peter Stevenson and Cameron Boardman, in November 2024 for a period of 12 months to support good governance as new councillors enter office and to help prevent the recurrence of issues that led to each council's dismissal. To ensure transparency, a reason why they were appointed, how much have each of the monitors received in payment to date funded by ratepayers, and how much is it forecast over their 12-month appointment? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Anthony. The Minister for Local Government appointed 2 municipal monitors to the City of Casey for 12 months to guide the newly elected councillors in their first year of elected representation. The rate in which the monitors receive for their roles is set by the state government. The two monitors appointed to the City of Casey, Cameron Boardman and Peter Stevenson, perform their role in a part-time capacity, which means payment will fluctuate across the 12 months according to their hours worked. To date, the monitors have received approximately $60,000.
The next question is from Paula Quiris in relation to the Hampton Park Hill WTF. Given the EPA's updated separation buffer guidelines requiring a 500 metre distance from sensitive uses, how has the Council assessed whether the WTS meets these requirements? And Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks, Paul. The separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and allows for a variation to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. The purpose of an assessment is to show a clear understanding of the potential impacts of the activity, whether it be odour or noise or dust, on sensitive land uses. The findings of the assessment assist in determining if a variation to a recommended separation distance is possible and appropriate. Technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, and they had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence, which is a condition of the planning permit.
The next question is also from Anthony Tassone about the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station planning permit approval. Given council officers granted a planning permit to Veolia for a waste transfer station at Hampton Park, despite not meeting EPA distance separation guidelines, a poor compliance record without public consultation, and did so in the window between the end of caretaker election period and newly elected councillors taking office, will the new councillors instigate an internal review of the processes undertaken to ensure good governance and best practice was followed in reviewing the application? This question will be answered by the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Patterson, and hello, Anthony. Thank you for your question. While the new council has expressed concerns regarding the transfer station in this location, there has been no decision to seek an internal review of the processes taken to issue the planning permit for the facility. The new council has no legal ability to revoke the planning permit for the waste transfer station. The planning permit can only be cancelled by a successful application to the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. Council is not currently aware of any justification for an application to be made to the tribunal for the cancellation of the planning permit. Councillors have been extensively briefed on this matter, spoken with residents, and received external legal advice in relation to our options as a new council. We are considering our next actions to best represent the interests of all Casey residents and ratepayers in relation to this proposal. The motion earlier in this meeting in relation to this matter was unanimously passed by councillors. Thank you, Mr Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Steve Orchard about transparency. Why during the last meeting public questions were not answered? They were provided policies or implications of the policy. We need an explanation, or why and how. When will the public get this? Ms Bednar will respond to this question.
Thank you, Steve. All public questions that were received and that were valid with the governance rules were answered at the February Council meeting. Those questions that were not valid, the submitter was contacted to let them know. A number of questions were also received after the question close-off time, and so those questions were carried over to be responded to tonight.
The next question relates to closed meeting advice from Oscar Fernandez. Share the advice from Vic Police that justifies making this meeting online only or banning ratepayers and residents from attending. Post it on your website or email me a copy. Additionally, how long do you plan to continue banning members from attending in person? You cannot hide behind screens forever. Eventually, you will have to face the very people who elected you and answer their questions. These restrictions only serve to alienate the community further and to fuel resentment against you. Ms Bednar will respond.
Thanks, Oscar. Advice from Victoria Police highlighted concerns and plausible threats relating to public attendance at the council meeting tonight. The advice provided to council was confidential in nature and is not available to be shared. This decision, made by the Mayor and CEO, was not made lightly and ensures councillors can make important community decisions whilst prioritising safety. It is Council's preference to hold in-person council meetings. However, the plan for the future council meetings will be considered based on the advice from the Victoria Police and the information available at the time.
The next question is from Ross Farmer about local law. Could the Council explain whether all compliance requirements were met in the formulation of the local laws, specifically for the following requirements? A, compliance with the Council Community Engagement Policy, that is Local Government Act Section 73(2). B, compliance with the requirement to consider the application of Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act, particularly Principle 20, private property rights. C, consistency with planning laws, particularly permitted uses not requiring permits, that is Local Government Act Section 72B. And D, compliance with public participation standards set by the Auditor-General. Ms Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Ross. The Casey Community Local Law 2023 public consultation process followed the Community Engagement Policy, commencing on 20th of September 2023 and concluding on 20th of November 2023. As part of the consultation, the community were provided with the draft Community Local Law 2023 and invited to make a submission in response to the draft document. Council ensured that the proposed local laws complied with the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act 006, particularly Section 20, which relates to private property. The proposed laws protect the rights of individuals to own and use their property without interference from public authorities. However, the Council's review also ensures that the exercise of this right does not detrimentally affect others in the community. The local laws impose a reasonable and justifiable limit on this human right in accordance with the principles set out in the Charter. In alignment with existing planning, the local laws are designed to support and remain consistent with the established planning controls. That individuals' rights to use their property without undue interference from public authorities has been applied and at the same time ensures that the right is exercised in a way that does not negatively impact the broader community. The Council's public consultation process for the local laws adhered to the public participation standards set out by the Victorian Auditor-General's Office as outlined in the Better Practice Guide for Public Participation in Government Decision-Making.
The next question, also from Ross Farmer, relating to the local law. Could it state where it has published the community engagement process it applied in the making of the local laws, as this is not evident on the Council website, that is Local Government Act Section 73(3)(d). And again, Ms Bednar will respond.
Thanks again, Ross. The proposed Community Local Law 2023 public consultation process commenced on the 20th of September 2023 and concluded on the 20th of November 2023. As part of the consultation with the community were provided with the draft local law and invited to make a submission. The Casey Conversations page was viewed 126 times and the draft document was downloaded 50 times. However, Council received no submissions from the community. The process was outlined on the Casey Conversations website and promoted via Council's communication channels.
The next question relates to rooming houses from Greg Harai. What is the Council doing to keep ratepayers safe from constant harassment and vandalism from residents of rooming houses? Complaints are brushed off as not a Council matter, but you have a duty of care to ratepayers. And Ms Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Greg. Victoria Police have previously advised officers that matters relating to antisocial behaviour of residents, for example harassment or vandalism, need to be referred to the Victorian Police Assistance Line for investigation. They can be contacted on 131 444 or via the online reporting tool on the Victoria Police website. Council's environmental health team registers rooming houses as prescribed accommodation businesses under the Public Health and Wellbeing Prescribed Accommodation Regulations 2020. These powers, however, only use of residents. To ensure a whole of government approach in the provision of support, investigation and enforcement of rooming houses, a working group has been established at the City of Casey since November 2022. This forum allows for Council officers, along with partner regulators such as Consumer Affairs Victoria and Victoria Police, and support agencies to discuss and address matters concerning rooming houses.
The next question is from Jackie Horn about the Development Plan Overlay Schedule 1, DPO 1 and Amendment C294. How does the approval of the WTS align with Development Plan Overlay Schedule 1, DPO 1, which guides environmentally sensitive development in the area? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Jackie. The Development Plan Overlay Schedule 1 provides guidance for the preparation of a development plan. Once a development plan has been adopted under the schedule to the Development Plan Overlay, a planning permit application must be generally in accordance with that plan. Council has confirmed that the permit application for the waste transfer station is generally in accordance with the development plan and considered environmental and amenity impacts, including noise, air quality, traffic and landfill gas risk when making a decision on the planning permit application.
The next question, also from Jackie Horn, relates to the same matter. Amendment C294 was introduced to transition Hampton Park Hill towards urban renewal and open space development. How does approving a WTS fit with the long-term strategic planning for the area? And under Section 8A of the Planning and Environment Act, planning decisions must align with regional policies. Has the Council assessed whether the WTS approval is consistent with state planning objectives? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks again for your question, Jackie. The Amendment C294 is currently with the Minister for Planning awaiting authorisation for public exhibition. The adopted Hampton Park Hill Development Plan strategic framework plans are consistent with state government strategic policies, which identify this precinct for waste and resource recovery activities. The waste transfer station proposal was found to be consistent with the adopted development plan and the state government strategic policy. The adopted Hampton Park Hill Development Plan strategic framework plans are consistent with the state government strategic policies, which identify this precinct for waste and recovery activities.
The next question is from Ben Pilios relating to open stormwater drainage system. Can the Council provide an update on the ongoing issue with the open stormwater drainage system behind our property on Robinsons Road? We are experiencing an increase in vermin, including water rats and turtles, entering our property, which is impacting our children's safety and quality of life. Despite multiple complaints, no action has been taken. Can the Council please address this matter and implement a solution? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Ben. Council records indicate that the land in the vicinity of Robinsons Road, including off Ripplebrook Boulevard, is Melbourne Water-owned land. We are happy to discuss this issue further with the resident, with you directly, to get a precise location of the land in question and therefore what steps we can take or we can advocate to Melbourne Water.
Next question is also from Ben Pilios about local law. Could you please clarify the Council's procedure regarding the removal of vehicles from private property without prior notice? Specifically, I would like to know if the Council is required to give notice before removing a vehicle or if a removal can occur without any warning. Additionally, are there any specific regulations or guidelines that govern this process to ensure that property owners are informed and given a reasonable opportunity to address the situation before action is taken? Mr. Colden will respond to that question.
Thanks, Ben. If a breach of the local law is identified after a complaint from a community member, the property owner of the land where the breach occurred will be issued with a notice to comply to remedy the breach. The notice to comply states what work is required to be undertaken, the time frame in which it should occur, the infringements that may be issued, and the Council may conduct the works to remedy the breach if required. The owner is generally provided a minimum of 21 days to comply with the notice, and in most instances, this is actually extended. Should works not be completed or landowners refuse to engage and work with our council officers, the infringement may be issued and council may be able to carry out the works to rectify the breach. This could include, but not limited to, cutting grass, trimming a hedge that is obstructing a footpath, removing unregistered vehicles, or clearing hoarding materials from unsightly property.
The next question is from Gabby T about the Cranbourne West Development Plan. Can the Council please update its website with details regarding the Cranbourne West Development Plan in regards to the expanse of land between Thompsons and Hall Roads adjacent to the Western Port Highway and release information regarding what exactly is planned to be built? Residents are experiencing loud noises as well as odours from major construction, of which we have no idea what it will be or how close the type of industrial buildings will be directly adjacent to housing. And Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Gabby. The Casey website does include detail of this precinct, and the link to the Casey West Precinct Structure Plan is available via www.casey.vic.gov.au/Cranbourne West. This includes proposed road and land use locations adjacent to the residential area. The planning register available on the Casey website will also provide details as to what applications have been lodged. These applications are exempt from consultation with the community as long as they are generally in accordance with the Cranbourne West Precinct Structure Plan.
The next question is from Chris Lucy about the waste transfer station. The City of Casey signed an agreement with SEM AWP on the 24th of August 2023, committing to the state government's push for advanced waste processing. How does this agreement impact the council's independence in assessing the WTS proposal? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Chris. The City of Casey has publicly pursued a move away from landfill to advanced waste processing since 2017. Council officers involved in the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing procurement declared a potential interest with and therefore were excluded from the process of consideration of a planning permit for the proposed Hampton Park transfer station. The waste transfer station proposal was found to be consistent with the adopted development plan and state government strategic policy.
The next question is also from Chris Lucy about the same subject. Were there any financial, professional or political connections between councillors, council officers or consultants involved in the decision-making process and SEM AWP? If so, were appropriate conflict of interest disclosures made in line with the Local Government Act 2020? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Chris. The South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing procurement was led by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action and followed state government requirements, including independent probity oversight to maintain integrity and impartiality, use of a competitive process, consistency and transparency of process, confidentiality and security of information and identification and management of conflicts of interest. Confidentiality and conflicts of interest declarations were completed by relevant officers from all councils participating in the evaluation.
The next question is from Sandra McDougall about conservation of wildlife. Are we ensuring new habitats of wildlife are being made with the development of new housing and factories popping up in the Cranbourne West South land? We have seen many turtles near or on the roads due to groundworks. Wrens are gone in my area. There are feral cats everywhere, and we've taken the most habitual land from them. Can we give them a fighting chance? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Sandra. The Cranbourne West Precinct Structure Plan outlines requirements for open space and the biodiversity requirements. In the area currently being developed for employment land, this will predominantly be through carefully landscaped wetlands, linear reserves and open spaces, as well as the retention of some vegetation. If any wild turtles were ever found on the road, it is recommended to call wildlife rescue.
The next question is from Judith Buchanan about who answers residents' questions, elected councillors or non-elected persons or entities. Any non-elected individuals, overseers, advisors or others assisting in wholly, solely or otherwise the construction of answers to the community residents' questions or influencing the decisions made by the councillors who were elected by the Casey community during or even outside of meetings? If so, how does the council ensure that these unelected persons' involvement does not undermine democratic processes or the transparency of council and or councillors' operations? This question will be answered by the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Thank you, Judith, for your questions. So council officers draft the responses to public questions the same as if you called or emailed council directly for advice. You would receive a response from a council officer. This is consistent with the public question process in other councils, where officers are best placed to answer questions related to operational or technical matters. Where there are questions received that seek a councillor or mayor perspective, they are shared with myself as Mayor for consideration and response. You will have noted in tonight's meeting that for these questions, I am tonight answering these councillor questions myself to make it clear that these responses are the views of either myself as Mayor or on behalf of the new councillor group. This is done in accordance with the governance rules, which allows only the Chair or CEO and staff to respond to public questions. However, I have liaised with individual councillors for any public questions directed to a specific councillor. Just to be clear, the decisions of council and the business conducted in these meetings, as you've seen tonight, are those of the councillors and the councillors alone. We make these decisions and we take responsibility for them. I hope this clarifies the distinction between the council officer and councillor responses. Thanks again for your question, Judith. Thanks, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is also from Judith Buchanan about council sets the scene for disrespect that day, don't blame the people. Reference meeting on the 18th of February 2025, approximately 14 council-related personnel taking almost half the meeting room, leaving insufficient space for all community members attending to enter. Thanks to considerate public who consolidated some of the wasted space and making room. Why didn't councillors, Mayor, make a move to accommodate rather than to disrespectfully insulting them by yelling from their spacious and comfortable positions, "We're full, no more entry," when there was adaptable space in that room for all? And the Mayor will respond to that question.
Thanks, Mr. Patterson, and thanks, Judith, for your follow-up or second question. I've sought advice from officers in relation to the arrangements in the chamber at February's meeting, as we are a new councillor group. Over the past 4 years, the council meeting gallery space has allowed for 40 seats in the gallery for members of the public. Officers took into consideration the potential for more members of the public wishing to attend the February council meeting, and the gallery seating was doubled to allow more people in the space, while still in accordance with safety guidelines. While there was insufficient space to accommodate all those seeking to attend the February meeting, this does not justify or condone the behaviour of a small number of members of the audience who sought to disrupt the February meeting, which had to be adjourned. This included constant interjections, vile and abusive language directed at officers, as well as members of the audience playing music on their phones throughout the public meeting. As a leader of this organisation, we have a responsibility and a duty of care to provide a safe workplace and a safe environment for community members. I'm not aware of any councillors yelling during the meeting, and viewing of the video has confirmed this. Unfortunately, we've been unable to meet in public this month due to VicPol and security advice of plans from individuals to coordinate to disrupt tonight's meeting, and the risk that that brings to the community members and council, again, not being able to conduct our business. I speak on behalf of the new councillors in saying that this was a difficult decision, not made lightly, and that we hope to be able to return to public meetings as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Peter Langdon about the South Gippsland Highway and Bellato Road roundabout. My question is directed to Stefan Kuman. Could you please provide all contracts regarding the construction of the South Gippsland Highway and Bellato Road roundabout, including who was the person responsible for signing these contracts from the beginning of the project, and including all contracts to the completion date? These roadworks are creating a major bottleneck and a huge embarrassment to the City of Casey. These contracts were under the administration era of Cameron Boardman. And the Mayor will respond to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Hi, Peter, and thank you for your question. A couple of residents have actually raised this matter with me this week, and I've since discussed this project with officers. Officers have explained and acknowledged the delays associated with this project, and the City of Casey apologises for the inconvenience that this has caused to both residents, commuters, and also local businesses. I've been advised this project has required multiple contracts to be delivered in relation to design, construction, public lighting, and asset protection. On the 15th of March 2016, Council awarded the design of the roundabout to BG&C Limited. Then, at a council meeting on the 18th of December 2018, Council awarded construction of the roundabout to Negri Contractors. On the 12th of June 2021, Council awarded the public lighting works to Magnetic Power Services. And then on the 7th of November 2024, Council awarded asset protection works of a Melbourne Water main line to MFJ Constructions. Details of the contracts are commercial in confidence. Completion of this project is scheduled for mid-2025, as previously discussed in tonight's meeting. I've asked officers to advise the community of any updates through our communication channels, should there be any changes to the project status or to the schedule for completion. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. My question, the next question is from Peter Langdon about the monitors. My question is to Councillor Gary Rowe. Could you please explain why we have the need for monitors to control our elected councillors? You and the councillors are there to represent the ratepayers who elected you, and you have no voice. We expect you to stand up and have your voice. Could you please confirm the cost to ratepayers of the monitors is over $1,300 per day each, and how we have the monitors removed for the elected councillors to represent the ratepayers? And the Mayor will respond to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, and thank you for the question, Peter. I'll respond to this question as Mayor in accordance again with the governance rules, which allows only the Chair and CEO or staff to respond to public questions. However, I have liaised with Councillor Rowe, who the question was directed to in regards to this response. So on the 12th of September 2024, the state government appointed 2 municipal monitors to the City of Casey for 12 months. The state government appointed the municipal monitors to support council to transition back to elected councillors and to ensure the work to restore good governance at Casey is embedded across the organisation. The state government sets the amount that council must pay the monitors during this prescribed term. This is a statutory requirement, and Casey is not unique in this way. As newly elected councillors, we acknowledge that there are frustrations among residents after 5 years without any elected representation. It was unfortunate that our February meeting was disrupted and we were unable to complete council business. However, I hope that today's meeting, while unfortunately needing to be online, shows that your newly elected councillors are listening and acting. We're exercising our powers and responsibilities in the best interests of Casey residents and ratepayers. Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Bernadette Dixon in relation to the clarification on EPA assessment and planning permit for the proposed waste transfer station. Given that the Council is fully aware that the EPA has not conducted a technical assessment to address clause 53.10 regarding the processing of organic waste at the proposed waste transfer station breaching 500 metres, what assurances can the Council provide about the project's viability? Specifically, if the EPA ultimately rejects the application during the development licence stage, will the Council revoke the planning permit, or will the permit remain in place despite the EPA's decision? And Mr. Collins will respond to that question.
Thanks, Bernadette. If a development licence is not granted by the EPA, the planning permit will continue to exist. However, the permit could not be acted upon and the waste transfer station could not be built due to conditions on the permit requiring a development licence to be obtained. Also, if a development licence is not granted, Council could investigate options to apply to Council or amend the planning permit through VCAT.
The next question is also from Bernadette Dixon about the social impact assessment and community concerns compliance with section 61F of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. The approval of the Hampton Park Hill Development Plan was justified by the necessity to adhere to state government initiatives despite receiving 1,052 objections. Considering this significant public concern, what comprehensive social impact assessments were conducted in line with the requirements outlined in section 61F of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, which mandates consideration of any significant social effects of a proposed development? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Bernadette, for that question as well. Section 60, bracket 1 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 applies to the assessment of planning permit applications and not specifically to the development plan. Section 61F requires a responsible authority to consider any relevant environmental reference standard within the meaning of the Environment Protection Act 2017. Council officers have consulted with the EPA during the preparation of the development plan and modified the plan to address matters raised by the EPA. The outcome of the consultation process was reported to Council at the 13th of December 2022 Council meeting. Given the level of interest and the number of submissions received from the community, Council resolved to defer consideration of the submissions and seek written confirmation from the relevant ministers regarding the state government on the policy position for the precinct and the future consideration of a commercial waste transfer facility within the precinct. Correspondence from the ministers raised no objection to the project and confirmed the development plan was generally in accordance with the state government planning directions. Detailed consideration was given to all submissions when the development plan was adopted at the 18th of July 2023 Council meeting.
The next question is from Alan Murphy about the Casey Community Local Law 2023. Have all establishments that carry out dismantle, repair and service, both large dealerships, Mercedes-Benz, Mazda, Toyota and Subaru, and smaller independent operators, all of which would operate on private land, been subjected to equal treatment under Community Local Laws 28.1a, b and c and 28.2. Dealerships would have many vehicles in new stock on hand that would not be registered until sold. Have any unregistered vehicles been forcibly removed by council, as was the case in Hallam? And Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Alan. The intent behind this clause is to enable council to deal with illegal mechanical businesses operating from residential properties. This clause does not apply to car dealerships or legitimate car service providers in commercial areas.
The next question, also from Alan Murphy, relates to the City of Casey governance rules and public question time. As the March 18th Ordinary Council meeting has been designated as online only, will submitted questions be read out and answered during the meeting without the persons or their representative being present in the gallery? Or would the question not be read out and answered at all because the person or their representative were not present in the gallery? Both of these scenarios would appear to be in violation of the Council's own governance rule. Is this correct? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thanks, Alan. As the meeting tonight is being held online, we are reading out all public questions that we received and are valid under the governance rules.
The next question is from Stuart Walters about the Barton Reserve. Why has construction of the facilities in Barton Reserve, Cranbourne West, Bradman Drive, not been completed? The tennis courts and bowling greens, as outlined in the plan of the facility, have never been built, but the facilities of all other reserves in Cranbourne West, Cranbourne East and Clyde North all have had facilities completely built. Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Stuart. Council prioritised construction of new recreation infrastructure based upon surrounding infrastructure and how well it is used, as well as trends in the demand for specific sports, population growth and funding availability. While tennis and bowls are shown in the Cranbourne West Precinct Structure Plan, Council has not observed sufficient demand, overuse of neighbouring facilities or received significant requests for a tennis or bowls facility as yet. Thus, funding has not been allocated for the construction of a new tennis and bowls facility in Cranbourne West.
The next question is from Lauren Tassone about community engagement policy. The City of Casey's currently endorsed community engagement policy has an endorsement date of the 18th of August 2020 and a review cycle of every 4 years. Despite this, it is not set for any further review until 30th of June 2028. Why is it not being reviewed for such a long period? Given the concerns raised of the community consultation process for the Local Law 2023, will the Council review its community engagement policy sooner? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thanks, Lauren. The development of Council's community engagement policy in 2020 was guided by an extensive community engagement process with input provided by more than 800 community members. The 4-year review of the community engagement policy occurred in 2024 and was endorsed by Council on 20th of August 2024. This review timeline is included at the end of the policy document under the heading Document History.
The next question is from Yawad Irfani about the playground on Shetland Street Reserve, Endeavour Hills. The current state of this playground is a concern for many families. There's no seating for carers, the equipment is outdated and unsafe, and there's no shade, making it difficult in warmer weather. I've raised this with the Calora Ward councillor, but haven't received a response. Can the council outline what can be done to improve this playground, including seating, equipment upgrades and shade, and provide a timeline for action? And Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Yawad. The playground located in Sky Crescent Reserve, Shetland Street Reserve, was built in 2009 and is not yet due for renewal. We are currently working on renewing older playground assets as part of our playground renewal program across the city. We will continue to inspect and maintain this playground in accordance with Australian standards, so it is safe and accessible for the community until it is identified for an upgrade in future years.
The next question is also from Yawad Irfani about road safety, intersection of James Cook Drive and Heatherton Road, Endeavour Hills. The intersection of James Cook Drive and Heatherton Road in Endeavour Hills remains unsafe, and tragically a 3-year-old girl was killed in a car accident there last October. Despite this, no visible safety improvements have been made. What actions has the council taken to address this? If this road safety upgrades are not within the council's direct responsibility, what advocacy has been made to the relevant authorities to ensure urgent improvements? Mr. Collins will respond.
We agree that this incident was tragic and was unfortunately not the only serious car accident in Casey in 2024. In this instance, the Department of Transport and Planning for the state government is responsible authority for this location, including the pedestrian operation signals on Heatherton Road. Council is responsible for the zebra crossing on the service road. The Department of Transport and Planning have conducted a road safety audit of this location and since implemented audit findings. We have also implemented findings of the zebra crossing. We are committed to keeping our community safe, and we have a number of road safety programs in place to educate drivers. We will continue to advocate for the state government to reduce speed zones, better pedestrian sequencing, as well as red and speed light cameras where there are large numbers of pedestrians.
The next question is from Patricia Rivers about Indigenous title. The proposed WTS site falls within an Aboriginal Heritage Cultural Overlay, AHCO. Has a Cultural Heritage Management Plan, CHMP, been conducted in accordance with the Aboriginal Heritage Act 2006? Have registered Aboriginal parties, RAPs, been formally consulted regarding potential impacts on culturally significant landforms? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Patricia. I did answer a very similar question previously. So no Cultural Heritage Management Plan is required for the Hallam Road landfill site, as the site was significantly disturbed in the 1950s by quarrying for sand, which has substantially altered the natural surface of the land. Most recently, advice from qualified heritage advisors submitted with the application for the waste transfer station confirmed that the site was substantially disturbed and a mandatory report was not required.
And the next question is from James Rivers. Why is it approved despite strong local opposition? This is subject. How does the WTS approval align with the Council's duty under the Local Government Act 2020 to act in the best interests of the community, particularly when there is strong local opposition? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, James. Section 9 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires councils to engage with the local community in strategic planning and ensure that regional, state and national policies are taken into account in strategic planning and decision making. The Hampton Park Hill Development Plan was adopted in July 2023 after community consultation and sets the strategic direction for the precinct for waste and resource recovery activities, including a site of the waste transfer station. This is consistent with implemented Victorian state government policy relating to the location of waste and resource recovery facilities.
The next question is also from James River, about what compensation will be received. Given that the WTS is planned to service the entire southeast of Victoria, what financial arrangements have been made and how much revenue will the City of Casey receive? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, James. There is no financial compensation offered to Casey for the planning approval of the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station or the use of the facility in the Southeast Metropolitan Advanced Waste Project.
The next question has been submitted by Tom Capitani about the CEO. Does the CEO read emails sent to councillors? Yes or no? His answer is required. Do other council staff have access and read incoming councillor emails? And Ms. Bednar will respond to that question.
Thanks, Tom, for your questions. The response to both questions is no.
The next question is from Julie Gifford about unregistered vehicle permits. I would like to know where you get your authority from in regards to having to get a permit to have more than 2 unregistered vehicles on one's property. It is my understanding that it's a Vic Roads issue. Would I be correct? Your answer would be much appreciated. Mr. Colden will respond.
Thanks, Julie. Vic Roads registration regulates the use of the vehicle on a road when it's being driven, and the Local Government Act 2020 enables all councils in Victoria to create local laws to manage amenity within the municipality.
The next question is from Irene Treacy about new permit requirements. I would like to know what process the council followed to consult with the community before implementing the new permit requirements. Also, were public forums, surveys, etc. used to gather feedback? And if so, what was the number of residents surveyed and what was the breakdown of the responses? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thanks, Irene. The proposed Community Local Law 2023 public consultation process commenced on the 20th September 2023 and concluded on the 20th of November 2023. As part of the consultation, the community were provided with the draft Community Local Law 2023 and invited to make a submission in response to the draft document. The Casey Conversations page was viewed 126 times and the draft document was downloaded 50 times. However, Council received no submissions from the community.
The next question is also from Irene Tracy about new permit requirements. How long are these permits valid for? Mr. Colden will respond to that question.
Thank you. Most local laws permits are valid for around 12 months. However, this may vary depending on the clause and condition outlined in the individual permit.
The next question is from Amanjit Jill about election period policy, Governance Rule 101. What is Council's position on the continuance of the restrictions imposed by the election period policy, particularly Governance Rule 101, beyond election day? If, as happened in 2024, the election period ends several days before new councillors take office, can and should Council resume making decisions that would be prohibited under Governance Rule 101? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you for your question. We do not have a position on the continuance of restrictions imposed by the election period policy. These restrictions are applied fairly across the local government sector in Victoria during the election period to ensure good governance and decision-making practices are protected. As detailed in Section 101 of the Governance Rules, Council is aware of the timeframes of the election periods well in advance and plan for Council meeting reports and decisions to be made outside this period where appropriate.
The next question is also from Amanda Jill about the Casey Community Local Law 2023 as gazetted. Did the version or copy of Casey Community Local Law 2023 that was gazetted on the 6th of June 2024 for commencement on the 1st of July 2024 contain yellow placeholders for the commencement and revocation dates in sections 4 and 5? Ms. Bednar will respond.
When a new local law is published in the Victorian Government Gazette, the notice must include the title of the local law, a summary of its purpose and effect, the date it comes into operation, and information on where copies can be inspected or obtained. The version available for viewing did contain yellow placeholders in sections 4 and 5 for the commencement in revocation dates. These placeholders are intentionally left blank as the dates were to be finalised once the enactment date of the 1st of July 2024 eventuated. These dates were not included in the Gazette notice as they were not required to be at the time of publication. The updated dates have since been finalised and are now available on the Casey City Council website for reference.
The next question is from Daryl Kavanagh about Local Law 2023 consultation process. As a member of Casey Conversations since August 2023, I missed the information to make a submission on the Local Law 2023 draft. However, unlike other projects covered in the Casey Conversations website, could you explain why there is no report outlining the outcomes of the community engagement and submissions? Ms. Bednar will respond.
Thank you, Daryl. The proposed Community Local Law 2023 public consultation process commenced on the 20th September 2023, as previously mentioned, and concluded on the 20th of November 2023. During this time, the Casey Conversations page received 126 views and the document was downloaded 50 times. However, Council received no submissions from the community. Council did not prepare a community engagement summary or report on this occasion, as there was no data available to report on.
The next question is from Peter Seppings about the Hampton Park Waste Centre. Why the Hampton Park Waste Centre is allowed to be close to housing when in the past with Brooklyn Greens, large compensation was paid out due to allowing the same situation. Shouldn't we have learnt from that lesson? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Peter. The proposal for the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station is not comparable to the experience at the Brooklyn Greens estate, which was concerning the migration of landfill gas. The potential for landfill and gas migration relates to landfills, not transfer stations that have accepted miscible waste, such as household wastes and may include organic material. The application for the waste transfer station has been assessed against current planning legislation and policy, including EPA guidelines.
The next question has been submitted by Liz Wagstaff about the waste transfer station. Noting the EPA's updated separation guidelines, which require a 500 metre distance from sensitive uses, how has the council assessed whether the waste transfer station meets those requirements? Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks, Liz. I've touched on this earlier tonight, but the separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and allows for a variation to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. The purpose of an assessment is to show a clear understanding of the potential impacts of the activity, whether it be odour or dust, on sensitive land uses. The findings of the assessment assist in determining if a variation to a recommended separation distance is possible and appropriate. Technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, and they had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence, which is the condition of the planning permit.
Next question is also from Liz Wagstaff about the waste transfer station. Given the inevitable impact on property values if the waste transfer station goes ahead, has the council sought an independent assessment to quantify the reduction in the value of ratepayers' homes and a method of compensation? Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks, Liz. A review of property values is not being proposed.
The next question is from Alan Ashcroft about the South Gippsland Highway Bellato Road intersection roadworks update. When will works recommence in a satisfactory manner? Not one crew every second day. This project has stood still for far too long and residents have been patient enough. Get it done. Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks, Alan. We know that many members of our community have been keen to see these works to be completed. Unfortunately, we've experienced delays due to third-party authority approvals regarding underground utility service assets. However, works have recommenced and the date for project completion is scheduled for the middle of this year. We thank our community for your patience while we try to complete this important project.
The next question is from Karen Young about landfill gas. Have the council officers in the planning department and council been briefed on what landfill gas actually contains? I understand landfill gas may contain methane, which can suffocate, but it is not the likely cause of the odour. It may also contain hydrogen sulphide, which smells like rotten eggs, but is not always an odour, as people's noses become unable to smell it. This is a gas that makes people sick, and at some concentrations, hydrogen sulphide is lethal. Mr Collins will respond.
Thanks, Karen. Planners have not been specifically trained on the contents of landfill gas. Like other technical areas, the planners will rely on advice from experts, including our internal team, the site assessment and land remediation team, and externally from agencies such as the Environment Protection Authority or consultants when required.
The next question is from Marzina Mansilla about governance. Community engagement compliance. Evidence of compliance with the Council's community engagement policy as required under the Local Government Act Section 73(2). Where has the community engagement process been published? This information is not evident on the Council's website as required by the Local Government Act Section 73(2)(d). Ms Bednar will respond.
Thanks, Marzina. The response to this question is very similar to one I've previously read, which is to highlight that proposed Community Local Law 2023 public consultation was open from the 20th of September 2023 until 20th November 2023. The community were provided with the draft Community Local Law and invited to make a submission in response to the draft. Our Casey Conversations page was viewed 126 times, draft document downloaded 50 times. However, there were no submissions from the community. This process was outlined on the Casey Conversations website and promoted via council communication channels.
The next question is also from Marzina Mansilla about human rights compliance. Can you provide the documentation demonstrating how the Council considered the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act, particularly Principle 20, private property rights in the formation of these local laws? Ms Bednar will respond.
Council ensured that the proposed local laws complied with the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act 2006, particularly Section 20, which relates to private property. The laws protect the rights of individuals to own and use their property without interference from public authorities. However, the Council's review also ensures that the exercise of this right does not detrimentally affect others within the community. The local laws impose a reasonable and justifiable limit on this human right in accordance with the principles set out in the Charter. The test was applied through a qualified legal professional as per the Local Government Act 2020 Section 74, which is as follows. Before council makes a local law, a council must obtain a certificate from a qualified person stating that the person is of the opinion that the proposed local law is consistent with the local law requirements.
The next question is from Scott Watson about transparency and public access to delegates' report on waste transfer station. Given that other councils provide full transparency on similar large-scale projects, why is the delegates' report for the waste transfer station not publicly available? Given the significant community concern regarding this development, shouldn't a report of this magnitude be readily accessible to ensure accountability and public trust? What specific provisions in the Act prevent its release, and what steps will the Council take to ensure transparency in this process? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks for your question, Scott. We're currently looking at options as how this information can be available to the public. The delegates' report is not something that is available to inspect under sections 197A to 197H of the Planning and Environment Act. However, we acknowledge the strong community interest in this particular planning application.
The next question is from Karen Young about landfill gas and Veolia employees. Is Council's Waste Department aware there appear to exist personal industrial chemical sensors for hydrogen sulfide, which can indicate the gas's presence when people's noses don't actually smell the odour? That question will be answered by Mr. Collins.
Thanks for the question, Karen. Yes, we are aware of this.
The next question from Scott Watson about the SEM AWP tender briefing document. The City of Casey is a member of the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing SEM AWP Proprietary Limited Consortium, which has entered into a waste supply agreement with the Maryvale Energy from Waste Project Co., a consortium including Veolia Australia. How does the Council reconcile its obligations to uphold public interest and transparency with the invocation of commercial in confidence to withhold the tender briefing document from the community via FOI, and what is there to hide? Mr. Collins will respond.
Thanks, Scott. I did answer a similar question earlier about the City of Casey. We've publicly pursued a move away from landfill to advanced waste since 2017. The South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing procurement was led by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action and followed state government requirements, including independent probity oversight to maintain integrity and impartiality, use of a competitive process, consistency and transparency of process, confidentiality and security of information and identification and management of conflicts of interest, confidentiality and conflict of interest declarations were completed by relevant council officers, all councils participating in the evaluation.
The next question is from Brian Rhodes about the diversity statement. The Mayor, Stephen Cooman, each meeting you read a diversity statement focused on the LGBT plus community. Both of my grandfathers fought in wars for Australia, and one of their names is on the cenotaph outside the council chambers. Given the council claims to be inclusive, I would like to know when you plan on including veterans in your statement. The Mayor will respond.
Thanks, Mr. Patterson, and thanks, Brian, for your question. It's good to hear of your grandfather's contribution and service to our country. The City of Casey honours and respects the service of veterans, recognising the importance of acknowledging their contributions. I'm proud to lead a council that recognises this, including outside our council chambers, as you've noted. While the council does not currently plan to review the diversity statement, community consultation will be conducted when it is up for review to ensure it reflects community sentiments. Thanks, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. And the next question is also from Brian Rhodes about local law permits for private land use. The Mayor, Stephen Cooman, I'm a resident of Waratah Ward and haven't heard or seen any opportunity to provide you feedback on anything related to council business, yet you claim to have consulted with your residents. Given there was a loud and clear message provided to you by ratepayers that attended the previous meeting expressing their dislike of this scheme, are you going to undertake real consultation and consider changing your position? The Mayor will respond.
Thanks for the question, Brian. I'm noting the question relates to the local laws which was addressed earlier in this meeting, but it's nice to hear from you as a resident and that you're from my ward as well. Unfortunately, we couldn't conduct our council business at our last meeting where I had to adjourn the meeting. I do presume in your question when you're referring to the scheme, you're referring to the Casey Community Local Laws. If you have joined us tonight, you'll hopefully have seen that councillors requested a report at tonight's council meeting that outlined options for the community local law and made a unanimous decision to review the law. Consultation with residents is vital to getting our decisions right and responding to the needs of residents and ratepayers. There are regular opportunities for the community to participate in consultation and have involvement in council's decision making, particularly around significant projects. However, I would also encourage you and other residents to reach out directly to your ward councillor, which is me in this case, if you have any feedback or if you'd like to have a chat about matters that concern you. I appreciate that this option wasn't available for the last 5 years under administration. Public questions at meetings are a good way to have questions answered. However, I'd like you to know that I'm available anytime should you need, and you won't need to wait for a monthly meeting to get a response. My contact details are available via the council or on the internet. Thanks again for your question, Brian. Thanks, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next question is from Sandra Karavatsis about Port Hedland Council documentation. In November 2024, the City of Casey's public health team received correspondence in relation to the Town of Port Hedland Council resolution on COVID-19 vaccines documented in Casey Council's MOM dated the 18th of February 2025. Can the council officers provide evidence, references of where the therapeutic
and are contributing to the spread of vaccine